into the unknown, down the rabbit hole, where it stops no one knows. We're going head into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
I guess I should probably add myself to the stream before I try to talk to you guys. Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome back to Criminality. And boy, has it been a day of filings. Thank you to Sleuthy Goosey for making sure that I was on top of my game of having everything that I needed, which I think I do. I was like counting. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is a lot going on today. Well, technically started last night, but 3 kids, 2 parents, 3 sports on a Wednesday is not the easiest task. So we made it happen, and I think we have a few weeks that are going to be like that. And oh gosh, I know I'm just down here talking. I'm like, I'm just talking and talking and talking. Oh goodness. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Let me say hi to everybody real quick, and then we're going to get started on what technically came out last night, but actually hit the docket today. Unindicted co-conspirator. Hello. Hi, ATS. What's up, 1960? Jen Cruz, Starlight, Andrew, Sleuthy Goosey, Yankee Ghost. Hi, Mandy. True Crime Fangirl. What's up, Cindy, Amy, Keiki, Joanna. Jody Takes a Trip. Hi, AH. Hi, Tech Death Hippie. Tech Death Hippie. I like it. Hi, Frank. Little Human just said, I like this song. Oh, see, that's why she's my favorite. She's my favorite. Hi, Carla. Hi, Jen. My King of Kings. Hello, Spring. I don't know if I'm supposed to say hello to hello, Spring, or does hello, can I just say hello, Spring? Hello, Spring. I don't know. Interesting. Inspector Gadget. Making a peach cobbler. I like peach cobbler with some vanilla ice cream. That's yummy stuff. Hi, Jen. Let me see. I don't know if I missed anybody up here. Hey, Marissa. Hey, Shaz. Hi, Sophie. Hi, Steven. Odie Dodie. Carla, Dina. Fluffy Bunny. Okay. So, let me see who's down here now. It gets stuck in your head. Oh, Gail, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I very much appreciate that. The case that never rests. I know. Just like, I knew once they filed for the speedy trial, I knew we were going to be rocking and rolling. Hi, Digital. Hey, Wayward BH. Hi, Gambies. The Rockaways. Hey, Lindsay. Bonnie. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Christy. Gail. And Strictly Chaos. Strictly Chaos. Okay, so I figured we were just going to start seeing back-to-back, things coming in. Especially not only because we have the speedy trial happening, but we know that on Monday, as of right now, we have the contempt hearing to go through, and it's kind of confusing because there is the other hearing set for Monday, and I keep getting differing comments on what it actually is, but I'm thinking it might be kind of an overall. Some are saying that it's the motion to dismiss from the defense. Others are saying it's the added charges from the prosecution. But it might just be kind of an overall, and I'm thinking the reason it's set into a 9 a.m. and a 2 p.m. is one is about the contempt hearing, essentially the prosecutor versus the defense attorneys, right? And then the other set of hearings, whether it be the 9 or the 2, the opposite, is actually about the trial of Richard Allen, which is the most important part of Monday. So when people think Monday is going to be canceled or anything like that, I don't foresee, even if the judge was to postpone the contempt part, there's still a whole nother section, no matter which way you look at it, that has to do with the actual trial that I think should go forth, or probably will go forth. That's my opinion. So we have, and because we have both of these things kind of happening at the same time, there's just a flurry of motions and things going in. So we have to make sure that we're, keeping track of what goes with what, because they don't all go together. Remember, we have different sets. And if this is your first time here, welcome. But you guys, anybody who's been here, I've tried to separate this case into essentially 3 different categories of everything to do with the leaks, everything to do with the attorneys, and then everything to do with the actual Richard Allen trial. The motion that came out last night it really puts the first 2 kind of together. It has to do with the leaks, and they're also using that to request a motion to postpone the contempt part of Monday. So now those 2 pieces are kind of coming together. Well, we're gonna get into that. And hello to everybody who has just popped in. Let me get the screen going. Hi, Shane. Good to see you. I love the kindness that is generally here. Yeah, do I need to do the disclaimer so I don't have to stop? Somebody's like, Mom always ends up pulling over the car and like yelling at everybody. I don't want to yell at anybody. I really don't. So, I mean, I think that you guys kind of know, like, just be nice to each other. Just be nice to each other. And then everything really runs super smooth and we can get through everything that we want to get through. And then we can talk about it and we can have questions and, whatever it is. Hi, Freckled Joy. Good to see you. Hi, sweet dude. Hi, Peppermint Tea. What's up, Shelly? Hi, one of the Teresas. Okay, Cool Gamer. Mommy Wolverine. Hey, Richard. BGOG. Okay, let's get into... We have a lot. So, I was reading through this one last night because, like I said, this is the one that came out. So, we're gonna hit it up. So most of you guys have probably already heard it, but we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna talk about what I think about it, and then we're gonna talk about what you guys think about it. Soul Sister Nadine, I miss you, girl. We always got as kids when we were whining. Want me to? Yeah, you want me to pull this car over? All right, Susie Q. Okay, let's see. So this is going to be the first one that came out. Like I said, it was filed yesterday, hit the CCR today, but it was actually out and floating around last night. And it is a verified emergency motion for a continuance. This is going to have to do with the contempt hearing. So we just got to make sure that we clarify, because I know it gets confusing, and I know that there are people out there who think they all have to do with the same thing, and they just don't. My kind of cue for you guys is, if you see that it's written by Hennessy, then it has to do with the contempt hearing. If it's written by Osbrook, it has to do with the contempt hearing, but mostly by Hennessy. If it's written by Baldwin and Rosie, then it actually has to do with, give me 1 second, you guys, my son's calling me. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to start with this one. So this actually has a lot to do with the leaks and the investigation done into the leaks by Jerry Holman. And it's tough because it has to do with the stuff with the Mitch Westerman side, but not they're not really bringing Westerman into it as much, only because Westerman has his own case on the other, in the other county. So, all right. So this is a verified emergency motion for continuance based on Hennessy. He respectfully moves the court for an emergency continuance only of the March 18th, 2024 contempt proceedings, which is what I was saying earlier. It's different than whether that's the 9 a.m. or the 2 p.m. It gets confusing, but it would still continue. The other part would continue. The other hearing scheduled for Monday would still be there because it has to do with the actual Richard Allen trial. So in support of this request, counsel states that on March 1st, they took a deposition of Sergeant Holman, at which time it was learned that there were recorded interviews that had been provided to the prosecutor or counsel. It was also learned that the attachment to Sergeant Holman's report had not been provided to the prosecutor or counsel. The attachments had not been given to even Nick. That's interesting. Mr. McClellan promised to get them. On March 11th, counsel first received the recorded interviews of, and I don't know if there's an L in her name, Talhara. I'm not even going to bother to say her last name. I would totally butcher that. Robert Fortson, Rick Snay, Anya Kane, and Kevin Greenlee together, Mark Robert Cohen, and Kyra DeBruin, as well as the omitted attachments to the report. Due to other obligations, counsel was first able to listen to the recorded interviews the morning of March 13th, 2024. The recorded interviews contain a wealth of information. Can you guys see this okay? Let me make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. The recorded interviews contain a wealth of information that beg independent investigation of the source of various photographs that were posted on the internet and traded between people on the internet. Additionally, had counsel had the omitted materials prior to First Sergeant Holman's deposition, he would have asked many, many more questions which need to be asked for proper preparation and representation. So the problem here that I have is that there was a discovery deadline that was put in place for the contempt hearing of March 7th. And for whatever reason, I didn't go back and grab it, but I'm thinking that they literally just made that for the defense and that the prosecution just didn't have a deadline to have to turn over. They just didn't have a deadline to have to turn over their discovery for the contempt. Maybe somebody on chat will correct me on that, but I'm thinking that it just had to do with that the defense had until the 7th to turn theirs over, but the prosecution just didn't have one. And so now here we are, yesterday the 13th and today the 14th, and they're just receiving things that the state plans to use against them on Monday. That's frustrating. High unsolved crimes. Susan, it was just the defense. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, so the recorded interview of Miss I'm going to say Tahara, I don't know how to say her last name, revealed that she recognized that Libby's sweatshirt was on Abby. She had confirmed that she received the photos from a Tyler Carpenter, who is Reg Dunlap on YouTube. Hi, Sluice. Hi, Mal. And that there was some connection to a screenshot from George Rye, which is a typo, a former law enforcement officer. That's Ruckus Rocks. This was the first counsel had heard of these people, and the first time he heard anything about Tahara. She is, if you guys are familiar, or if you listened to, she goes by Bella, and she was the one that was on the Murder Sheet podcast. I don't know if you guys remember that, or if you even listened to it. I can't even believe we're here talking about this stuff. I know it's Luthi, right? Hi, Heart Candy. Hi, Elena. Okay, so YouTuber, not a YouTuber, but was on a podcast. That's kind of where we're at now. It's like, I don't know. She also confirmed that she had corresponded with Mr. McClelland. She also indicated that she had been part of a small Facebook group, a Reddit group, and a YouTube channel, as well as a public that's Discord server with private chats. She also revealed that a person known to her had hired a private investigator to follow Mr. McClelland. She also identified other persons possibly involved in the dissemination of photographs and named a Paul Mannion, who is from The Unraveling, if you guys aren't familiar, which is another name counsel had never heard. Lastly, she agreed to provide screenshots to First Sergeant Holman, and they agreed to do that later. Counsel has not received any screenshots and first learned of their existence when listening to that recording. This is frustrating. So these are screenshots that were taken from Reddit, the Unraveling Discord, and given to the murder sheet, and obviously apparently given to McClelland, and they were put in the murder sheet's Facebook group. Now, you guys know how I feel about screenshots. There's a lot of things that go with that there's no context, there's no context. And so this whole like hiring a private investigator, if somebody makes a smart ass comment like, ooh, I'm gonna hire a private investigator to go after Nick McClelland, and then all of a sudden it's screenshot. And this is, you could take both sides, anybody, everybody. This is why I hate screenshots just in general. But there's no context to it. How do you know the person's not joking? How do you know it's not for fun? How do you know it's serious? I don't know. So the fact that this is the type of stuff that's getting turned over, it's just like, oh my gosh. I don't know how, let's just say a person does hire a private investigator to follow Nick around. What does that have anything to do with the Richard Allen trial? Why does that matter? Maybe they have their own reasons to need a private investigator to follow Nick around. I don't. It's like, I don't. Whatever. This is personal vendettas that have just overridden anything to do with justice for the girls. So that's where we're at. Counsel has not received any of these screenshots and just learned of their existence during the recording. During the interview with Robert Fortson, this one's a little tough, and it's hard because we know the outcome of Robert Fortson was that he ultimately ended up committing suicide not long after he was being asked these questions. So this one's a little bit more, it kind of hits a little closer to home, like a little closer to the heart. During the interview with Robert Fortson, he invoked his right to counsel more than a half a dozen times, which we know that to be true. We know that he did invoke his counsel because they talk about that in the email exchanges. Even though, okay, so First Sergeant Holman acknowledged he had a Fourth Amendment right to counsel, even though that is the wrong amendment, but continued to question him. I think that's kind of funny. That's throwing a little bit of shade. Sorry, hold on one second. Right. Like I said, I'm going to egg your house, but that wouldn't be true. I don't know where you live for one, and I'm not like that for another. Right. But now all of a sudden people are going to come and they're screenshotting that you're going to egg my house. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Richard is going to come and egg my house. And it's just tough. And that's the future. It's what our kids have to deal with in the future too, they're in the era of social media. Yeah, and a veteran, is 23-year veteran of our country. A 23-year veteran of our country. So anyway, so they throw a little shade here, and they're like, yeah, even though that's the wrong amendment, but continued to question him. First Sergeant Holman referenced a guy from Texas, Mark Robert, who we now know is Mark Robert Cohen, and a K. Smith, which was a name counsel had never been made aware of in preparing for the contempt proceedings. There's no indication that Miss Smith was ever interviewed by First Sergeant Holman. So First Sergeant Holman referenced a guy from Texas. So he mentions Mark Robert and he mentions Kay Smith to Robert Fortson. There's no indication that she was interviewed. First Sergeant Holman told Mr. Fortson that the judge isn't very happy and he could be charged with contempt of court. He also told him that if he didn't give a statement, that would be obstruction of justice and possibly contempt of court. When Mr. Fortson indicated to First Sergeant Holman that he was not comfortable speaking with him until he was able to seek consultation, Sergeant Holman told him if he didn't cooperate and delete whatever he had, that if he called the judge and told her he's not willing to cooperate, I'm going to make a phone call and see if she wants to issue that order or not. This is when First Sergeant Holman was also referenced that Mr. Fortson could be charged with obstruction of justice and contempt. Sergeant Holman then said, let me call the judge real quick and we will go from there. He then left the room for several minutes. He returned and told Mr. Fortson that he had talked to the prosecutor and if he was not willing to turn over any pictures or information, basically that there would be consequences. Sergeant Holman also said that the judge had said if they have photographs, get them and get information about where they got them. Sergeant Holman then told Mr. Fortson his lack of cooperation was going to ruin Richard Allen's rights to a fair trial. And going to really mess some things up for him. He then said, doesn't bother me any because it's all bullshit in my opinion. Sergeant Holman also told Mr. Fortson that this is some serious shit. It's serious shit, but it's also bullshit. It's all bullshit, yet it's some serious shit. And that the judge is adamant that he get the photos out of circulation. Mr. Fortson then confirmed that he didn't have anything like that in his possession and that there was nothing for him to delete or anything like that at all. This is so problematic for me. Now, a couple things. He obviously invokes his right to counsel. But then in this it says that Holman is questioning him. But they go on to make statements that Holman made. There's not necessarily any questions. It's just like he just keeps talking to him. He just keeps making statements over and over and over again. So he's just making like, that's fine. You want to have a lawyer, but this is what's going to happen to you, whether you get a lawyer or not. So I don't know. There's going to be the technicality on the fact that and there's no actual question in any of this. This is just a bunch of statements by Holman. The second part is that Judge Gull, we've seen the email where she does say, like, you better have talked to all of these people and so on and so forth. You better have, interviewed Rick Snay and the murder sheet people and these people aren't journalists. We're going to hold them all in contempt. But she can't hold them in contempt. So there's a lot of responsibility here on these people, in my opinion, and you guys can agree or disagree with me, and that's fine. But I think there's a lot of responsibility that these people are using the ability that they have as law enforcement and in the judicial system to threaten things that they're not able to actually do. And I get it. I get that they're allowed to lie. I get that they're allowed to say those things to get answers. But what happens now? What happens when you do have a young man, a veteran of 23 years of our country who's done 4 tours for our country, and you threaten him with things that actually can't happen? He didn't do anything wrong. He did not break the law. Is there accountability for that? That's what I want to know. And it's frustrating because I get like emotionally the photos are horrendous. Morally, ethically, They should not have been out. They should not have been known by the public. They should not have been seen. But morally and ethically doesn't always go with legally. You know, it doesn't always match up. And so, like, legally, what Fortson did wasn't wrong. Maybe morally, maybe ethically, depending on your morals and your ethics. But I don't know. This is a hard one. This is a hard one for me because now there's a wife with no husband and there's a daughter with no dad. And I get it's so complicated because there's so many layers to it because, you know, I've told you guys, like, one of my best friends when I was younger committed suicide, and you would never have thought that that would be the person who would do it. Like, he was the happiest guy ever. He was the one who made everybody laugh all the time. And I know that there's a whole lot that has to go into, you know, somebody getting to that point. And I don't want to say, like, oh my gosh, it's absolutely Holman's fault or it's absolutely Judge Gull's fault. He made the choice. I get it. I don't know. It just is. It's just sad all the way around for me. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And this is what we had thought had potentially happened, but we'd never seen it in writing. And I think it just kind of made it more like we had speculated. Was that possible? Could this have been? And we still haven't heard the recording, but I mean, Hennessy's putting this in here in quotes. You know, and then he's like, that doesn't bother me any. It's all bullshit in my opinion. And then you're visiting him at his work. You're visiting him at his work, where he's, you know, he's a very respected person. And people are looking at him like, why the hell is the ISP here questioning you? I don't know. So, all right, we have a lot to go through, so I don't want to stick on that. But that just makes me probably the most emotional about the whole thing. Found his daughter wasn't biologically his. Oh my gosh, Shane, that's terrible. It's terrible. It's like there is that final thing that just makes it where, what do you do? You know, like that they can't handle. They need to get out of the darkness. So this is their out. They feel like it's better. Unless you've experienced the helplessness and the insanity of a smear campaign or targeted harassment by law enforcement, you don't understand what that does to a psyche. Strong people aren't impervious. I don't even know if it's just law enforcement, but I think that they do have an extra layer of fear that's instilled into people because you don't know what the hell they can do. And let me just say, if you're, and I don't know, I never spoke to Mr. Fortson. I don't know how he felt, but let's just say if he is in the belief that Richard Allen might not be the right guy, or if he's in the belief that he is the right guy, but potentially that these law enforcement officers have done some shady things, just imagine that the law enforcement officer you think has done shady things being the person who's now coming to question you. Like, if you're like, I don't trust Jerry Holman, and then all of a sudden Jerry Holman's like, hello. I don't know. I think that could scare the shit out of you when you know they have that type of power. All right. Like I said, we'll keep going. So Rick Snay was interviewed by telephone. That's Delphi After Dark for anybody who doesn't know. Mr. Snay indicated he had received 4 photos from Kyra. Mr. Snay also indicated that he had heard that other people had received photos from Mark, Robert, and Kay Smith. Mr. Snay indicated he had gotten the photographs Thursday, but no date was provided in his interview. Well, I think we can pull up the timeline, but that's what we're going to go back. That's the 5th. Hi, Mariah. Good to see you. Hi, Delphi After Dark. I know, Rick. I'm going to go over that too. I just wanted to go over this part first, but I am going to touch on that. The document says that I gave Kay Smith's name to Holman. I did not. Let me put this up here. This is from Rick, who we're talking about in this filing. It's been cleared up, and Kay at no time had the photos. Yeah, I'm going to go over that part too, but thank you for bringing it up. So Mr. Snee indicated he had gotten the photographs Thursday. I believe that's the 5th if I go back on the calendar, but no date was provided in his interview. Sergeant Holman told Mr. Snee that the judge was very adamant that if any got released by anybody, she was going to issue contempt of court. March 13, 2024 was the first time counsel had heard the name Kyra. Okay. In the interview with Kyra, she indicated that her source was through Reddit from a lordless warrior who she believed was Ron something. First Sergeant Holman then asked if it could be Robert Fortson, and she indicated that that sounded familiar. She never firmly identified Robert Fortson. Whether Lordless Warrior was Ron, someone, or Robert Fortson, Kyra indicated that person had deleted in the entire conversation. Sergeant Holman told Kyra that the judge was pretty upset and had said if they do get shared, she was going to issue warrants for contempt of court. Counsel has been provided no information identifying Lordless Warrior as Robert Fortson, so the true identity of Lordless Warrior needs to be investigated. So this is a lot. So essentially, and I'm going to bring up, you know what? I don't know if I actually grabbed them or not. Give me 1 second. Let me send them to myself. Oh, you know what? No, I did. I know where I put them. I'll just grab them from there really quick. Hold on. Okay. So let me bring these up really quick. So this is from Kay. Kay's been in the groups for a really long time, and she's typically, just out there like posting documents and, letting people know what's going on. And in my opinion, I've never seen anything nefarious, so it is what it is. But she posted today after, obviously, that came out last night. So she said, after seeing the new filing, which my name was mentioned, I feel strongly that I need to set the record straight. I'm seeing the false information already being posted, so I choose not to ignore it. Many people have already messaged me showing support. I want to thank all of you for that. I was beyond upset, but also furious about the false insinuation. I don't appreciate being named in a document where I am being falsely accused or even insinuated as being involved. The statement reads, as the officer was told in an interview that somebody had told him that they had heard that others had received pics from Mark Robert and myself. I want to stress that this statement is a total lie. I never shared those sensitive crime scene photos. I've never asked anyone to send them to me. I've never received them from anyone. So therefore, I have never sent them to anyone. I've never seen them, nor would I ever want to see them. Mark Robert never sent me those pictures. He knows that. I'm sure he will be honest enough to verify that he never sent them. No one else that is mentioned in this filing sent me those pictures. Absolutely no one at all has ever offered to share them with me or ever sent me these pics. I don't even use my email with strangers or anyone on Facebook. In fact, I barely use email at all. It should be easy to verify that I didn't send any pics to anyone. I do engage with other members. Oh, why does it want to do that? Freaking thing. I do engage with other members through Messenger in Facebook groups, but never was there an exchange of these pics through Messenger or by text or by any other means. I learned about the leaked pics of the girls at the same time that most everyone else learned. I was upset. It was upsetting to me that this had happened. I have total respect for Libby and Abby and their loved ones. I would never interfere in the case by doing this, and I always felt sad that this leak happened. I absolutely want to know the names of the people claiming I sent them to them. I feel I deserve to know who is lying. After hearing this false information, I immediately went right to the source mentioned in that filing. I messaged Rick Snee. His name is the one mentioned as being the one who told Holman that he had heard from other people that MR and I sent these pics to others. Rick Snay said this is absolutely not true. He never told Holman that, and he never even mentioned my name. He doesn't think that they even spoke about anyone else having the pics except the one person that gave him permission to share their name. Rick gave me his permission to share that I had reached out to him and asked for an explanation. He completely denied telling Holman that he had heard that I had shared these crime scene pics of the girls with others. So and then she posts the conversation that she has with Rick Snay, where he's saying, I did not tell Holman that, and not really sure where it's coming from. But we do know that he brings it up to Fortson. So where he got the info, I don't know. I mean, the name isn't coming out of nowhere, but I do not believe that she was sending the pictures to anybody at this point. I think that we're pretty much cleared up on that. And then here's Kyra. She's in chat too. So she's saying, Delphi After Dark is a good guy, and that's why I went to him as I did many times before to ask if something is real or for advice. People who don't like him wouldn't get it though. I get it, and I understand that. And I understand that if that's the person you talk to, you're like, holy shit, I just got XYZ, and I don't know if they're real, and I don't know what to do with them. I get that. Yeah, and not to mention that Rick Snay never mentioned Kyra's name to anybody except for law enforcement. Not that I'm aware of anyway. Publicly, he said, no, I'm not throwing her out there because you know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, a lot of lies got told to cops and then appeared in these filings per interviews given to defense. Those people should catch obstruction charges. But ironically, the only people that she wants to throw anything at would be the people she wants to hold in contempt for actually having the photos. I don't know. It's like there's a weird thing of like we're going to make up laws or not make up laws because the law is there, but we're going to make up the circumstances where we're going to convict somebody for it or hold them in contempt or charge them with obstruction on issues that you can't. They're not a crime. But then when somebody actually is doing something, it's like, it's okay. No big deal. We're destroying evidence. It's all right. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Kyra, I'll be very honest. I never heard. I mean, I knew your name from social media, but I'd never heard your name connected to anything to do with the leaks. For me, and I was somebody who was actually digging into it, and you weren't on the radar at all. So, who actually brought Kay Smith into this? That's the question. That's the question. They didn't make up her name from nowhere. So where did it come up? And we're gonna go through a couple other things that thinking. This is my thought process. And okay, if you're here, please tell me if I'm wrong. And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, this is my thought process, not what I know. I believe that there was communication from Kay to possibly Fortson or Mark Robert just from being in the groups. And what I'm wondering is if her name is mentioned in any of those screenshots or in that conversation, because we know from up here, yeah, this is not the same K, FYI. This K on YouTube is not the K that's being talked about in here. So just FYI, they are two different people. They're not the same person. So this K is not this K. Robert Cohen named K. Well, that's what I'm wondering, but not as in, I'm thinking it has to do with something with the, this is my opinion, like I said. I think it has to do with who was all in communication with each other versus was there actually any photos? And that's what I'm wondering, because you also remember, Jerry Holman's bringing it up to Robert Fortson like, hey, what about Kay and Mark Robert, huh? What about them? What about them, you know? All right. Wife Lilith, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, so here's that. So the interview with Kyra, she indicated that she had actually talked to Robert Fortson through Reddit. Well, the public, we're pretty aware of the fact that Lordless Warrior is Robert Fortson, right? So people are going to be like, oh my gosh, there's no way in the world that the defense doesn't know that. The problem here is there's nothing being turned over to them that shows that that was investigated and proven to be true. And whether like somebody from YouTube or social media says, hey, you know, Mr. Hennessy, FYI, Lordless Warrior is Robert Fortson, it doesn't matter. There has to be an investigation with evidence to support it. And that needs to be turned over if they're going to use any of that stuff in the contempt hearing on Monday. Does that make sense? So even if they have the awareness that that is probably Robert Fortson, it has to be proven to be able to become evidence and used on Monday. That's really what that is. Okay. So Mark Robert Cohen, in his interview, indicated his source was Robert Fortson, and that Fortson had told him to delete everything. That's just, we've heard that before. Somebody else told somebody else to delete everything too. No, Marcel, no, nobody's going to jail. None of these people are going to jail. I mean, ultimately Baldwin and Rosie could be sentenced to jail come Monday. No, Rick's not going to jail. Nobody who has the photos are going to jail. Having the photos is not a crime. Having the photos is not a crime. Yes, they don't want them out there, but there is nothing illegal about having them. It's it. I don't know how, and I know, like I was trying to say, like, I get ethically, morally, people shouldn't have them. They should be deleted. You know, if we want justice for the girls, I get the whole thing when it comes to the emotional side of it, but the legal side of it, nobody's facing charges. Nobody did anything wrong. They are not illegal to have. It's not illegal. It's morally and ethically bad. We do not want to be sharing them around. We do not want to be saying, hey, look at what I've got. Ooh, we don't want to do that. They will be shown in court to a jury, but that's it. It's nobody here, nobody on YouTube. None of these people are going to jail for having photos. That's the bottom line. Hi, Sniper. The corruption of Ellie and Delphi had now directly contributed to the death of 2 veterans, RF and JS, and no one has been punished, fired, or even admonished for lying and falsifying shit. I'm right there with you. That's why I'm like, what can they, there's got to be some accountability here. As a Canadian, that judge can ban whatever she wants. She doesn't have jurisdiction, period. Right. So she's going to, if Joe has him over in Australia or Frank has him over in the Netherlands, what's she going to do? She can't do anything. They're not going to do anything. She'll be like, hey, you guys have photos. Like, it's not illegal. Hi, Ruckus. It's not illegal to have it. So it is what it is. I get that people don't want them out there. I get it. I understand the emotion, but stop confusing emotion with the legal side of it. It's not illegal. So Mr. Cohen had the impression that Mr. Fortson was an attorney. Mr. Cohen also indicated that Mr. Fortson had made a $500 donation to his daughter's Make-A-Wish fund, which First Sergeant Holman then referred to as a GoFundMe. We know it was a GoFundMe, but it had to do with his daughter's Make-A-Wish because it was to pay for him to take the time off of work. We've gone over this 1,000 times. The donation was done before and was unrelated to any conversation about or receipt of any photographs. Sergeant Holman told Mr. Cohen that the judge had told the prosecutor, who had told him, which this is a true statement. I mean, I don't know if it's true that he told him that, but that the judge had, this part right here, the judge had told the prosecutor, and who had told him, if they're not produced or aren't willing to delete it or give it up, she's going to issue orders for contempt of court. and whoever released them will get charged with contempt of court. You're not under a court order, so how do you get under contempt of court? But I mean, I guess they just throw contempt around all willy-nilly anyway, so it is what it is. Maybe we are all going to contempt of court at this point. We'll see you Monday. Anyway, so Anya, which they typo, and Kevin of the Murder Sheet podcast were interviewed together. They provided printed copies of photographs to First Sergeant Holman. They identified their source as Mark Robert, but they only had 7 photographs, while the prosecution has alleged that 9 photographs were disseminated. Now, this is interesting because remember, Rick Snay up here tells them that he received 4, which is what he said publicly. But now they're saying they got 7, which is what we heard. Remember, we were like 7. What would 7 be? If you have the 4 pictures and then you have the 2 sketches, like we were going, and then the F tree. We were like, okay, that makes 7, right? Well, I don't know. So there's apparently 9 that the prosecution says were out there. They did reference a cursor on the photograph of a close-up of Abby's head, which is curious and belies the theory that there were photographs of photographs. Mrs. Kane and Mr. Greenlee indicated the close-up of the head was to document something in her hair, which was supposed to be antlers or horns, and that indicates some source other than what has been alleged. At the end of the interview, Miss Kane and Mr. Greenlee told First Sergeant Holman that they would provide him 100 plus screenshots. This would be the conversation between Fortson and Cohen, is the 100 plus screenshots, and potentially even maybe the conversation between Cohen and them. I'm not sure. But I do think it's interesting because if the photos are photos of photos on the, if the photos are photos of, oh my gosh, if the photos are of photos on a table, then somewhere along the line, somebody took a picture of Abby's head on a computer, which would then not count as one of the 9 photographs that prosecution is alleging was taken and disseminated. So it gets kind of confusing. Okay. So they're going to give them this 100 plus screenshots, right? Counsel has not received any of the screenshots that were provided to First Sergeant Holman. So they don't have any of these 100 screenshots that are supposedly there. Okay. Had these interviews been timely provided, counsel would have had many, many more questions for First Sergeant Holman during his deposition and would have had engaged in additional investigations such as the people never before known alternate sources of photographs and the true identity of Lordless Warrior and more. Well, why would they have not been turned over? Why are the screenshots not turned over? Why would the interviews not be turned over? Those all had to take place back in what? October? I mean, for any of you guys that happen to be interviewed, that happen to still be in chat or around, October, right? Is when you guys were interviewed. We're in March, and they filed the contempt. Nick McClellan filed the contempt charges in what, January? I see, Dove. Hi, Veronica. How late am I? About 48 minutes and 57 seconds. So, with potato. Hennessy said he didn't give any reports to Nick either. I'm good. Oh, he said he didn't give any of the screenshots, the attachments. Yeah, we don't have any of that yet, Ruckus. I agree. There's none of that yet. Okay. So number 12, on March 13th, Mr. McClellan indicated he would try to get the screenshots if they exist, which according to Murder Sheet, they said they exist and they said they were giving them over. And so, I mean, they're somewhere, no matter who has them, they're out there. But when he had time, that is nice, but not very helpful at this point. I mean, it's calling a spade here. Like that, when you have time, you're going to figure it out. Sergeant Holman seems to believe if there are recordings or documents of people he doesn't consider important to his theory, they do not need to be provided. At this point, there is no time to accomplish those tasks to fully, fairly, and competently represent defense counsel on March 18th that he would try March 18th and that he would try to get the screenshots. Lastly, the undersigned counsel learned, this is sad too, learned on March 13th, his aunt, so Hennessy's aunt passed away on March 12th. So our condolences go out to Hennessy and his family on his loss. He does not know the service arrangements at this time. 16, it should be noted that this request applies only to the contempt proceedings and would not cause any delay on the other hearings scheduled the same day or at the trial. And then here is the case they cite is Ramirez versus State on the Indiana Supreme Court on transfer reversed the denial of a continuance by this very court when counsel specifically identified the late discovery of interviews and new allegations, the effect upon counsel's theory and preparation, and what counsel needed to do further due to the late discovery. That is exactly this case. Like, why doesn't he have them? Why does nobody have any? If this is such an urgent matter and they have to get it to court on the 18th, why aren't they turning the shit over? And we talked about this, like Nick is putting so much on his own plate because, you know, Baldwin and Rosie have an attorney to deal with the contempt stuff. McClellan has to deal with both. This is him. He has to do it all. I mean, he has his, you know, couple lackeys, but that's it. Like, he has to prepare both. It makes no sense. Ooh. That's deep. He does have Shane, but now you got to remember, Shane is running for judge. See, this is why I usually lurk in the lives, because every time someone sees I'm in a chat, the whole crew comes out of the woodwork to bash me. I'm sorry, Criminal, I have to go. I hope that the it's tough because if you guys know on StreamYard, I can't tell what's being deleted, so I'm trying not to address stuff and throw everything off. And I know the mods will just be deleting those types of comments. I don't get why anybody wants to stop attacking each other. Stop attacking each other. Kindness is going to win for you every single time. That's where I will stand with that, and I always will. All right, I'm not even going to address it because I know you guys are taking care of it, so I'm just going to ignore that it's even happening. Otherwise, I'm just bringing more attention to it, and I hate that. You guys have to remember, like, everybody here is a human being. We all make mistakes. We all do shit wrong. We all do shit that we look back on and go, shit, I wish I had never done that. And if somebody was to hold against us every single thing that we ever did wrong in our whole life forever, we would never be able to grow as people, ever. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. And I know these are not necessarily exactly in the order that they belong in when it comes to the topics, so maybe I should just do that instead. Actually, before we move on from this, there was a video that was posted that I wanted to show you guys because it actually has to do with this, and it was on Hoosier Cold Case. And I want to see if it's still up or not. Let me see real quick. Because there's a part in here. I'm going to bring it over here, but there's a part in here that I want to show you guys. And let me just see if I can find it. So this is a conversation that has the very first person that was mentioned on there, and like I said, it's Tahara, but she goes by Bella. But she's talking about that Rick Snay would tell her where he got them and how he got them. What is unknown at this time is that she actually has them, and she got them from Tyler Carpenter, but she doesn't mention that when she's talking. And so I thought that was quite interesting, because why? You guys know, if you guys have paid attention to anything I've ever done when it comes to the leak, I've always felt that that it was they really wanted to make sure that Rick was known to have had them. They wanted everybody to know Rick had them. I still feel that way. So here, so in a meeting with Holman on Monday, I think that's the right one. I don't want to show everybody's like full names, even though technically she's now in a court document, so it doesn't really matter. But the weird part here is that they start talking about Dave Hennessy. But Dave Hennessy's a nobody yet. Dave Hennessy, nothing's even happened with Hennessy. So I'm very curious about how Dave Hennessy's name starts getting dropped in private chats, when it's the same thing when we were talking about like how the murder sheet was like the only people that were adamant that the defense was going to be removed. Every other defense attorney, whether they were pro-prosecution or not, was stating that, no, this is just going to be like a slap on the wrist. They're going to report them. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. But Murder Sheet knew that they were going to be removed before the defense even knew they were going to be removed. And then so now, how did this private chat of people know about Hennessy and how he was going to come into play? That's very curious to me when it comes to this whole leak. He's helping the defense. Right here. He's helping the defense. How the hell do you know that? This is why I'm like, the fucking leaks are just pouring. Let me see. Hi, Tornado. Everybody in Cocoa Beach is listening to me. Hi, Cocoa Beach. What's up? I go on solid info, not if you're nice, that means shit in a murder case. The chat is interesting today. It is. Well, it becomes really hard when we start talking about people that are actually connected to the social media side of this, because there's a lot of friendships and there's a lot of history of people who don't like each other, and a lot of history of people who didn't like each other but now do. And so it starts to spill over, because now it's in the court documents. I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't even be having the conversations about these people if it wasn't part of now this case, that we have no choice but to kind of talk about it, because it's infiltrated the actual Richard Allen trial. So that's where I'm at. Otherwise, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't even talk about it. So anyway, so I just thought that was interesting, because obviously if they're meeting with, and the reason it's interesting is because she met with Holman. She met with Holman. Huh. So anyway, like I said, this is on Hoosier Cold Cases channel. I'll grab the link really quick if you guys want to watch it. It does go a little fast, but you just have to pause it and then read the screenshot, and pause it and read the screenshot, and it kind of walks you through it. But that's the video if you guys want to take a look at it. All right, we're going to go to the next one. Let's keep the blame where it belongs. The LEO and prosecutor, most importantly, the judge. It's her job to keep control of the case, and she's not doing it. I don't think Murder Sheet knew anything. What they initially reported they did when receiving photos doesn't agree with what Hennessy says in the motion for the continuance. Well, I think that this is my opinion, and my opinion is going to be that they met once again. There's a common denominator here, and it's Holman. They met with Holman, and then they went back and did another podcast and said, hey, defense is going to get kicked off. And then they met with the first person on there, and Bella meets with Holman, and she comes back like, Hennessy is helping the defense. Like, how you know this? It hadn't even been filed yet. The public didn't know about Hennessy yet. So who's telling them? That's my whole point of the whole thing. Who's telling them? Who's telling all of these people things? Message in McClelland. Okay, well, like I said, let's go to the next one. These are in order of how they came up on the docket, so just FYI. So this is the verified supplement for emergency motion for continuance. Now, counsel for the defense. This is another one for Hennessy, so this has to do with the contempt hearing. There are no secrets in Delphi. The prosecution provided additional discovery today, March 14th, which consisted of 14 megabytes of screenshots and photographs. So there they are. Counsel has not yet had time to review the additional discovery. So Nick did find them. Nick took the time and went and got them and sent them over 14 megabytes of screenshots and photographs. There it is. Okay. So good job, Nick, for finding the time to do that. We appreciate that, or the defense does anyway. The public does, so we can keep going. Okay, so now, this is another big one. Libertarian. Hi, Alley Cattails. All right, so this is now the third Frank's notice and request for Frank's hearing based upon newly discovered evidence and the request for findings of fact and conclusions of law upon any ruling on this request. Shane, 5 years of nothing, and now everything is thrown out there. I preferred when we only had a pick of BG. It's so much simple. So who is the K they're talking about? I don't know if she spends a lot of time on YouTube. I know her from Facebook groups. That's why it's definitely two different things. I mean, it's two different people. It's not you. I just want to make sure everybody understands that the K that's right here is not the K that's being talked about in the documents. It's just different person. So it would mean that the judge told Nick and or Holman, it's the only way. We have discussed examples of indications that Nick and Court have been having discussion. Absolutely. That's where I'm at. That's what I think. That I was like, no, we're gonna have him removed, because if you remember, the conversation on the phone was that Nick was like, they should be disqualified, and she's like, I tend to agree with Nikki, and now here we are. So I think they did now. I think and now all of a sudden the conversations are happening with the people on social media who are repeating it. You want for the leak? The leak is that what we know for sure is that Fortson sent them to two people. He sent them to a male and a female, right? The female sent them to Rick Snay. The male sent them to another male, at least one, and then murder sheet. And it's kind of gone from, let me see, one person to one more person to possibly two people to one more person. And I think that's how it's been very much contained, is that there was no mass email. This was my whole point in trying to figure out this damn leak, is who makes an anonymous email and just sends it out to the world. There's no mass email. Not one person has ever come forward and said, oh yeah, I was on the email with 55 other people or whatever it was. He may not have had him anymore, or he may have lied because he wanted to talk to an attorney, and he may have deleted him by then. Because you have to remember, this is what, I think it's the 9th. Do I have that up by chance? Let me see really quick. Let me see. Give me 1 second, you guys. All right, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. So here we are. Let me see what you guys are saying. I don't believe I've ever spoken. Maybe it's another K. Maybe it's not even you. It's clear that someone heard Hennessy was getting involved and someone told Holman. So then he asked if Hennessy was involved because they thought someone close to the case on the defense was involved. That's very possible. Mm-hmm. Hi, Ivy. Okay. Okay, so it would have been from Nick because Nick was the one on the call. I see what you're saying, but I still think Nick could have told Holman. I think it could have gone either way. Nick and Holman, you know, sharing the info. I think it's very possible either way. I have no proof of that. That's just what I think. Because it doesn't make any sense that these people who are just random people on social media are like, oh yeah, let's talk about Hennessy, long before a Hennessy even exists to anybody else outside of a Murder Sheet podcast. How would anybody know that Hennessy is helping the defense? Unless they knew that Hennessy had done these filings prior to us knowing it, or knowing that Hennessy was getting involved. Yeah, it just isn't, it's not random. I agree with you. Okay, so all right, here we go. So this is now this now has to do with the trial. Comes now accused Richard Allen by and through counsel and files his third Frank's notice and request for Frank's hearing based upon newly discovered evidence. In support of said motion, the accused states the following. It's a huge positive. Oh, you guys can't see this. That this document is not 136 pages. I think that took me like 6 lives to go through. On September 18, 2023, the defense filed its first Frank's notice, which consisted of a 136-page memorandum supporting detail certain evidence that Tony Liggett failed to include in his search warrant application. Number 2, certain evidence that was detailed in his search warrant application that was false. And number 3, evidence that law enforcement had acted in an intentional manner on multiple instances, attempting to conceal evidence from the defense and failing to tell the truth under oath concerning certain evidence. Number 2, the defense incorporates the contents of its first Frank's notice and memorandum into this document. Remember, she denied this without a hearing when they came back as counsel and tried to set it for a hearing the second time, even though she was going to give it to Librato and Scremin. She denied it for them, no hearing. On October 3rd, 2023, the defense filed its second Frank's notice detailing how the prosecution and law enforcement had attempted to conceal the identity of a Purdue professor whose testimony contradicted that of law enforcement officers Tony Liggett and Jerry Holman. This notice was provided as a supplement to the first Frank's notice in order to bolster the defense contention that the state of Indiana and law enforcement were acting intentionally and or with reckless disregard of the truth to further support the request for a Frank's hearing. The defense incorporates the contents of its second Frank's notice filed on October 3rd, 2023 into this document. After Frank's 1 and Frank's 2, it's just, I was joking around about this in the criminality Delphi chat, and I'm like, it's like Big Frank and Little Frank, and like Frank Jr. You get Frank the first and Frank the second. Were filed just before the defense was kicked off the case in October 2023. The defense received certain geofencing evidence that the defense did not have an opportunity to fully examine, explore, or discuss with its experts. Just after the defense was reinstated on the case in January 2024, it received certain discovery in the form of a September 22nd, 2023, oh my gosh, report authored by Jerry Holman, purportedly memorializing an interview Holman had with a former Purdue professor named Jerry Turcrow. Both the geofencing evidence and Holman's September 22nd report provide new information that supports the defense's request for Frank's hearing. Specifically, the defense received a certain geofencing evidence that at least 3 persons were in or around the crime scene at a time while the murders were taking place, according to the law enforcement timelines. And none of the owners of the phones have any connection to Richard Allen. This geofencing evidence would provide evidence of any of the following scenarios. A, those persons walking with the phones are witnesses that would have observed the murders as they were taking place, and none of them have identified Richard Allen. Those persons walking with, or B, those persons walking with the phones were witnesses who observed nothing, as the murders did not take place the afternoon of February 13th, but the victims were taken to the crime scene after the search was called off. There's a lot of people who believe that theory. And then C, those persons walking with the phones were participants in the murder. So the question comes is, are any of these people actually interviewed in Delphi Police Department during that first 7 days where everything got erased? Are they not interviewed at all? Do they know who these people are? Because none of this has been followed up on. There's no, and I mean, it doesn't mean that law enforcement didn't do a follow-up. What this states is if they did not turn it over to the defense yet. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. So essentially, you get 3 options here. Either these people who these phones belong to are the perpetrators. These people who the phones belong to witnessed something or were very near witnessing something and should have been interviewed. Or 3, there was nothing happening at the place that they considered to be the crime scene and the girls weren't there. That's what the defense is saying. Now, I do think that the other option is that there are these recordings that were taking place from the beginning and that they have talked to these people. If we look at the timing of when they were looking at, what was it? I'm not going to remember off the top of my head. I don't know if they say it in here, 302 to 327 or whatever it was. We know that Cheyenne and her friend was there. And somebody said she was there with 2 friends. I was only ever told she was there with 1 friend, so just take that for what you want. And Cheyenne had come forward and said she was interviewed 2 weeks later. So then that wouldn't have anything to do with the 7-day thing. But it would make sense that we know for a fact she was there, unless they're talking about 3 unidentified phones. So this is extremely interesting. And I think it's more interesting because, there's been the conversations for years about, did Richard Allen have a burner phone, right? Did he bring a burner phone there because he knew what he was going to do and he had a burner phone and he was contacting somebody or somebody possibly contacted him on this burner phone? If that's the case, then wouldn't that have been identified and made it connected to Richard Allen? Because if none of them have identified, or none of these or have any connection to Richard Allen, according to the defense. Now, is there something that just, once again, is not turned over? Steve says, when one of the phones at the murder time was RL, is everyone going to excuse it away like they did at night? Well, wouldn't they already know that, though? Wouldn't they have, I mean, they already have his cell info. They know where he was pinging, and or they should say they know when he was pinging. We don't know exactly where because they don't give us the exact coordinates. But if his was one of the phones, wouldn't that be easy to say? The unlikely but potential 100-yard margin of error does not even reach back to the bridge from the crime scene. So I had a question about this, and I was thinking about it earlier. I was talking to Shelly about this, and the crime scene, are they considering the crime scene only where the girls were? Because that's another thing I think needs to be clarified, where the girls were found. Because if you remember, the edge, the south end of the bridge is taped off and considered a crime scene the day they're found. So are we looking at 60 to 100 yards out from the end of the bridge? Or are we only looking at 60 to 100 yards from the actual location the girls were found? I think that needs to be clarified. Well, somewhat. They claim they were killed by the F tree and then brought over to the secondary tree. But what I'm saying is, what is actually cordoned off as a crime scene, they do count the edge of the bridge. I don't know. So that was just a question I had. Everyone poo-pooed me about an RA and a burner phone. Harvey Carroll had a video about all the geofencing and the cell data that was in the trails. All were accounted for but one. And I've heard for a long time it was two, that two were unaccounted for. Now we're looking at three potentially unaccounted for. They know the phone numbers. They know, I mean, they should know who the phones belong to. So the question is, did you follow up with any of these people? If it didn't happen at the time, then that actually makes sense. But that means Holman's sworn testimony regarding the time of death between being 2:30 and 3:30 that's not accurate then, if that's what they're saying. But we've heard from the beginning, they said everything was over by 3:30. Remember? I don't know. If they're unidentified phones, I'm going to lose my shit. If it was a burner phone that the prosecution is saying RAs, the defense could be identifying it as an unknown phone. But how? If it is, because they're saying it's not connected to Richard Allen. If it is a burner phone and they have connected it to Richard Allen, and that is something that they're actually going to use against him, like, hey, you bought a burner phone and you had it at the scene, then my question would be, like, it would have a connection. It would be connected. So in the memorandum in support of the Franks, Jerry Holman testified in his deposition that the investigators estimated the time of death as occurring somewhere between 2:30 and 3:30. And that is in the memorandum in support of the Franks hearing from before. So he is stating 2:30 to 3:30. And I wonder if that's where it comes from. I don't know. I don't know. I just think that if they could connect a burner phone to Richard Allen, wouldn't the prosecution be using that? Wouldn't they be using that and saying, hey, Richard Allen bought a burner phone on February 12th, 2017 at this location, and then that phone pings here and we have it on the geofence? Like, that would make, I don't know. To me, that just seems like it would be pretty obvious then. Not like it's not connected. There's 3 phones not connected to Richard Allen. And like I said, this does not mean there wasn't any follow-up with these people. What they're saying is if there was follow-up, they never turned it over. They don't, that the defense doesn't have it. So said geofencing evidence was so important to somebody involved in the investigation that they created a map and plotted the movements of these persons, including movements that show that at least one of these persons was within the 60 to 100 yards of the crime scene at a time while the murders would have been committed, according to law enforcement's timelines. This is still important to me on what they're considering. They're actually considering the crime scene. But didn't they say 2 phones in the other document, that 2 phones were in? The 60 to 100 yards? Didn't we read that in the other one? So we don't know that these people are not followed up on. We don't know that yet. What we know is that the defense is saying they don't have it if they did. That's where we're at with it. Because they're also asking for the rest of the geofencing information. What other reports and anything goes along with this just random ass map that they put in there? There's a map of geofencing, and then they're saying there's nothing that goes around it. I was asking in the one from, I don't know, it wasn't yesterday, the day before yesterday. I'm getting all my days confused. This one, hold on. I think I still have it up actually. Where it says that there was between 60 and 100 feet of the scene. Let me just type in 60. I thought it said there was 2. Again, specifically, someone prepared a map which tracked the February 13th afternoon movements of multiple, which says multiple phones in and around the place where the victims were ultimately found the following day. Particularly, some of these movements appeared to have occurred between 3:02 and 3:27, either at the scene where the victims were ultimately found on February 14th or within 60 to 100 yards from that site. And none of the phones are connected or have any affiliation to Richard Allen. Okay, so it says multiple phones, and then it just says that some of the movements are within the 60 to 100 yards. Got it. Okay, I clarified for that for myself. There may not be reports and narratives on the geofencing. That does happen, but they should know who performed it and data so it can be reviewed by their own experts. They probably don't have any experts. Holman said it was between 2:30 and 3:30 is why that time is there. Yeah, but why isn't it 2? This bothers me though, Sleuthy. I'm going to be honest with you, because are they saying that there's a potential that Richard Allen's phone is there at 3:01? Why the 3:02 to 3:27? Why was that time frame picked? That bothers me. I want to know if why not go with the whole 2:30 to 3:30? Why not put the whole thing in there then? That I don't get that. I don't like that. I want them to put the whole 2:30 to 3:30 in there. I mean, they have the whole thing from 12 to maybe there's no other phones. Maybe there's no other phones from the other time, and that's why it's narrowed down, because that's when there are phones. Yeah, like the 12 to 5. Yeah, 12:30 to 5:30 ish. Yeah, but I don't know why. I mean, there's specific. Maybe there's just no other phones during that time. Right. Okay. We'll go back here. Furthermore, the map shows that the other two phones and the persons carrying those phones were in and around the crime scene between 12:39 and 5:49 on February 13th. The map shows that the other two phones, outside of this one person, I'm assuming, and the person carrying those phones were in and around the crime scene between 12:39 and 5:49 on February 13th. That defense has sought out but has not been provided any documents or reports that contradict or refute said geofencing evidence, but have not found such evidence, nor has the prosecutor provided any when defense requested reports on said geofencing. In and around the crime scene from 12:39 to 5:49. So who are those two phones? Is this the two that were rumored to never have been identified? Three additional phones, yep. So I'm trying to figure out. So if either of these phones connect to Richard Allen, why wouldn't that just automatically be in there? Not necessarily the entire time, right? The map shows that the other two phones and the persons carrying those phones were in and around the crime scene. Well, you're going to go with semantics because it says between 12:39 and 5:49. Now, for me, if I said to you, okay, so let's say my live started at 3:15 and it goes to 5:15. If I say to you, hey, were you guys in my live anytime between 3:15 and 5:15? And you guys have been here, whether you stay for the whole thing or not, your answer would be yes. I was there between those times, right? Now, if I said, hey, were you in my live from 3:15 to 5:15? And if you've left my live and come back, then you were not here the whole time. So your answer would be no, right? So I know that's a thing of semantics, but this is what has bothered me about the Richard Allen one. Because on Dan Doolin's, it says that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30. So if somebody asks him, hey, were you at the trails? Were you at the trails from 1:30 to, or from 1:30 to 3:30? And I wasn't, I would say no. But if somebody asks you, hey, were you there at the trails between 1:30 and 3:30 and I left at 2? Then my answer would be yes, because I was there between those times. I was there. So that's why I said, I know it's a game of semantics, and I'm not trying to be, but the answer to that type of question would be very different. So between to me means no, not consecutive. Otherwise, it would say from 12:39 to 5:49. That's how I gather that. Is that right? I don't know. Depends on how you think. The defense has sought out but has not been provided any documents or reports that contradict or refutes said geofencing evidence, but have not found such evidence, nor has the prosecutor provided any when defense requested reports on said geofencing. When Tony Liggett drafted his affidavit for the search warrant of Richard Allen's home, he, Liggett, concealed from Judge Diener the fact that at least 3 phones and the people using those phones were moving in and around the crime scene at times when the murders would have been taking place, according to the law enforcement timelines, and that Richard Allen was not in any way connected with those phones. This is if he's connected to the phones, why wouldn't the defense know that? Tony Liggett should have notified Judge Diener that certain people who are not named Richard Allen nor connected to Richard Allen were moving in and around the crime scene at a time when Liggett claims the murders were being committed. It is reasonable to conclude that if Tony Liggett had notified Judge Diener that certain people not named Richard Allen nor connected to Richard Allen were moving in and around the crime scene, then Judge Diener would not have signed the affidavit, especially based upon the paucity of evidence otherwise contained in the affidavit connecting Richard Allen to the murders. Said geofencing information would have provided evidence to Judge Diener that negated Richard Allen's presence at the crime scene. Liggett should have told Judge Diener that crucial, relevant, and exculpatory information, which had been available since 2017, especially when Liggett's affidavit was written in October 2022, over 5 years later. Additionally, Sergeant Holman's September 22nd memorialization of his interview with Turco once again reveals that Holman attempted to deceive the reader of said report by leaving out key information and words uttered from the mouth of Turco concerning the likelihood that the sticks left behind were in fact runes, making Odinism's involvement in the murders more likely and worth investigating. Holman also failed to recite the full words of Turco concerning the plausibility that those who left the runes behind were involved in some type of human sacrifice. Let's see. Hi, Aspen. One of those phones could be Brad Weber's. He was getting home from work in his white van between 3 and 3:30 while the murders were purportedly being committed. So that possible. Now, if we go with where is the crime scene? So if they're counting the crime scene from the bridge, I definitely think so, because then that would make his phone on the private drive. But that one would be easy. We know they followed up with Brad Weber. We know they were at the Weber house multiple times. So that one should be easy to say, here's the report. That's what I'm saying. We don't know that they didn't follow up with these people. What the defense is saying is if they did, it's saying either they didn't, the law enforcement didn't follow up with these people, and if they did, they haven't turned it over. I mean, you have the McCains that we know were right there, at least one. You end up with Derek that's very close to there. He doesn't cross over, but he does go down the other trail. Cheyenne and her friend, Daniel Pearson and his girlfriend. I know he was like he was one of my first POIs. It was him and Tobe. I was like, that looks just like them. Okay, so Holman attempted to deceive the reader of said report by leaving out the key information. Oh yeah, he failed to recite the full words of Turco concerning the plausibility that those who left the ruins behind were involved in some type of human trafficking. Oh my gosh, human sacrifice. Sorry, I'm sucking on a cough drop because I'm losing my voice. Give me a second. I'm going to cough. Okay. On September 22nd, Holman wrote a report in which Holman failed to mention the word rune or any derivation. Oh my gosh. Or anything there, like anything like that. When memorializing the words of Turco, runes were a big part of Turco's interview. Yet Holman chose to exclude the word rune or any, I can't even say this word for whatever reason, of that word from his report. Instead, the relevant part of Holman's report was the following. This is going to be like specificity. Where was RA's phone? And here's the thing, extremely exculpatory is if they have his phone in that earlier part of the interview, or oh my gosh, Teresa, if they have his phone in the earlier part of that geofencing, that would make absolute sense. The private drive is more than 100 yards from the crime scene, but not a lot more. Well, they're saying that 2 of the phones are outside of that are near the crime scene, but 1 of the phones is in the 60 to 100. So let me go back up real quick because I want to see something. So this is what Sleuthy's pointing out to me is, so like the defense received certain geofencing evidence that at least 3 persons were in or around the crime scene at the time while the murders were taking place. Meaning that if they're talking about the murders taking place, then they are constituting where they believe the murders happened to be the crime scene. I see what you're saying there, Sleuthy. I'm picking up what you're putting down. It doesn't matter. I can't say it, Sleuthy. There's just sometimes I can't say words, and that's just what happens. Purportedly was one of them I couldn't say for like 2 days in a row. It just happened. I don't know what happens to my brain. It just doesn't work when it comes to certain things. So that makes sense, Sleuthy, though. I see what you're saying. Because it's saying the crime scene at a time while the murders were taking place. Yeah, I would still like it to be a little bit more specific, but no, because then you're gonna make fun of me. Okay, where did I go? Here it is. Turco's words and information that Holman left out of his report include the following. Oh shoot, did I miss one? I did. So this is a quote from the interview between Holman and Turco. I asked him, or no, this is, wait. Dun, 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 dun. The relevant part of Holman's report was the following. This is what Holman wrote in his report regarding the interview with Professor Turco. I asked him to summarize his findings, and he said they were inconclusive. In his opinion, he thought the sticks were placed deliberately, but was unsure what they meant. He said that he provided some educational guesses in his report. I asked him if the Odin religion practiced ritualistic human sacrifices, and he said no. He stated that no evidence or research indicates that religion practicing human sacrifices. He told me that if someone Google searched it, they may see that Vikings were accused of human sacrifices, but he said that there is no proof of it. I asked him if he had ever heard of ritualistic human sacrifices around here, and he said no. He told me not even in Norway, where this type of religion is more prevalent, has he heard of any ritualistic human sacrifices. So that's Holman's report. Guys are killing me over here. What Holman failed to write in this report were Turco's words that more strongly detailed how Odinism was likely involved in the murders due to the likelihood that the sticks were formed into a runic script. Quote unquote, it's a given, and how it was very plausible that human sacrifice could be a component to said murders. Because Holman had sworn under oath in his August 10, 2023 deposition that the sticks found at the crime scene did not represent Odinism or any type of cult worshiping or any type of a group that would have conducted the crime. This is from Holman's deposition. It was in Holman's interest to hide the actual words of Professor Turco concerning the likelihood that the sticks were formed as runes are significantly featured in Odinism. Sleuth investigates. I know. I ended up making that into a member emoji. Stupid word. Turco's words and information that Holman left out of his report include the following. After viewing the way the sticks at the crime scene were arranged, it was a given that the pattern of sticks was someone's attempt to replicate a Germanic runic script. One of Turco's colleagues, a Harvard professor with even more expertise, agreed. Odinism is an extreme neo-pagan, neo-heathenism ideology that has right-wing racist connotations. Brad Holder and Patrick Westphal were known to be involved in extremist racist groups. Although he could not necessarily interpret the intended meaning of these sticks formed into runes, the stick configurations were pretty clearly runic, and that he, quote unquote, could certainly imagine that this was somebody's idea that when you do a human sacrifice, you carve runes. There are some poetic sources that would sort of support that idea that somebody might have come across. That scenario seems entirely plausible to me. This is from Turco's actual taped interview. Furthermore, Dr. Turco discussed how runes were thought to have magical significance and would be used in incantations and rituals, and that there is a sacrificial connection in mythological poetry. This is also from his taped interview. According to police reports, Brad Holder told Amber Holder that he and Patrick Westfall had a falling out over something that happened in the woods near a river during a ritual. In other words, here's what Holman did not write in his report. So this is what they believe that Holman's report should look like. Turco told me that it was a given that the arrangement of the sticks was part of a runic script. Investigators have learned that runes are a feature of those who practice Odinism, and those who practice Odinism are sometimes aligned with racist extremist groups. Brad Holder's son had some type of dating relationship with one of the victims, and Brad Holder was an Odinist fascinated with runes, which were found throughout his Facebook page. Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall were also affiliated with racist extremist groups. Also, Turco admitted that it was entirely plausible that somebody would read something on the internet indicating that Viking religions involved human sacrifice, and that same person could have an idea that when conducting a human sacrifice, runes should be carved and that runes have a magical significance and would be used in rituals. Brad Holder told his ex-wife that Brad and Patrick Westfall had a falling out in the woods near a river in February 2017 due to something that happened in a ritual. So this is what the defense team thinks that Holman's report should have looked like. Instead of including Turco's words detailed in the previous paragraph, Holman wrote that Turco's findings were inconclusive, and then failed to even mention the word rune even a single solitary time. If you are trying to hide Turco's actual opinion about the linkage between the stick configurations and a runic script and the entirely plausible opinion that a human sacrifice could be a component of the murders, then you would draft your report as Sergeant Holman did, as quoted from his report in paragraph 18 above. Essentially, if you're trying to hide the fact that it is actually Odinists, then you pretend that the professor didn't say anything about Odinists and that it doesn't match and that it's inconclusive and doesn't mention the word runes or runic. If you are trying to provide an accurate account of Turco's opinion, then you would write it as written in paragraph 22. Due to Sergeant Holman's sworn testimony from his August 10th deposition, Holman had a lot at stake when he interviewed Turco. Ideally, in order for Holman's sworn August 10th testimony to be true, Turco would have told Holman words to the effect of, that configuration is not runic, and therefore that arrangement does not represent Odinism or any type of cult worshiping or any type of group that would have conducted the crime. Unfortunately for Holman, Turco did not state words to that effect. Quite the opposite. This explains why Holman initially attempted to hide the identity of the Purdue professor, C. Frank Jr., and then attempted to conceal Turco's actual words in Holman's September 22nd report that it was a given, quote unquote, that someone was trying to replicate a Germanic runic script, and that it was entirely plausible that a person believed that human sacrifices involved the use of runes. Turco. In defense counsel's experience, some lawyers simply don't listen to a tape recording of an interview, but rather rely on the veracity of police reports that memorialize the interview. In this very case, for example, Brad Holder's February 17, 2017 videotape statement was purportedly erased. Only a short report memorializing that taped interview exists. Therefore, the defense is being forced to rely entirely on the words and the context the author of that interview chose to include in that report, rather than the entirety of the actual words uttered by Holman. The way that Holman memorialized his interview with Turco, detailed above, should cause alarm about what law enforcement choose to include or not include in their reports. The tape recording is the best evidence. What Brad Holder shared with investigators in his February 17, 2017 interview, but the authors chose to leave out, even innocently not knowing what was important at the time, could be exculpatory in nature or lead to exculpatory evidence exonerating Richard Allen. However, at this time, we are expected to simply accept the words written by the authors of Holder's erased interview, provide the full gamut of information needed to protect Richard Allen's rights. Again, Holman's memorialization of Turco's words in this case should cause grave concern to this court as it relates to any erased videotaped interviews. This is what we were talking about before when we found out that they were erased, because we don't know if law enforcement wrote down wrote down what was important, or if they even thought what was going to be important. Maria, yes, I am, absolutely. So we don't even know. And then for McClellan comes out and he's like, oh yeah, it's not even exculpatory. It's not exculpatory. I don't know. He can't determine that. He wasn't even the prosecutor at the time, unless he's heard the interviews, which would be really interesting. I don't know why I don't think he has the right to say they are or are not exculpatory. Let me see. Professor of German in the School of Languages and Cultures, and additionally teaches religious studies, comparative literature, and medieval Renaissance studies. Okay. If no one listened to Turco's actual words spoken to Holman on that audio tape, then Holman's deceptive memorialized report would leave the reader with an entirely different perspective than what Turco's words actually revealed. As it relates to Franks, the defense is required to show that law enforcement acted intentionally when including false information in the affidavit, or when omitting important information from the affidavit. It would be highly unlikely that Liggett would admit, I intentionally omitted important information from the affidavit, and I also intentionally included false information in the affidavit. Also, I wrote the affidavit with reckless disregard for the truth. If the standard to get a Franks hearing is that law enforcement must admit that they acted intentionally or recklessly, then a Franks hearing is a legal fiction, as no law enforcement officer will make such admissions. Therefore, the defense is left with providing information of times and occasions when law enforcement attempted to conceal evidence or falsify information in other contexts in the case. Franks Sr. and Franks Jr. provide multiple examples of law enforcement concealing or attempting to conceal evidence, and of law enforcement not telling the truth under oath, all backed up with exhibits that support those contentions. In Section 3 of the September 18th Franks Memorandum, the defense provided irrefutable evidence that Liggett provided false information in his affidavit concerning the words that Sarah Carbaugh spoke face-to-face with Tony Liggett in 2017 when describing the man she saw on the road just before 4 p.m. Liggett told Judge Diener that the man Carbaugh observed was the same man that Betsy Blair observed on the Monon High Bridge approximately 2 hours earlier. The problem was that what Carbaugh told Liggett in 2017 concerning this man's description was not the same as Betsy Blair's description, so Liggett did not tell the truth. Liggett then misrepresented Carbaugh's words so that they were consistent with Blair's description, and then for good measure added that Carbaugh observed blood on the man walking on the road when that is not what she told Liggett to his face in 2017. Liggett did not tell the truth. The defense would ask the court to reread Section 3 in its entirety and also to review the attached exhibits to the September 18, 2023 Franks memo that provide the absolute proof that Liggett misrepresented Carbaugh's words. The defense would ask the court to reread Section 3 in its entirety and also to review the attached exhibit. Did I just read that? No, it's the same thing. In its entirety, and review the attached exhibits that provide evidence that Liggett omitted crucial information concerning Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed from only 50 feet away on the High Bridge, as well as the description of a vehicle found at the CPS lot after she left the trail that does not match any of Richard Allen's vehicles. The defense would ask the court to reread the rest of the Franks 1 and Franks 2 in order to gain perspective on the many instances of law enforcement not telling the truth or attempting to conceal evidence and the truth. This third Franks notice provides additional evidence of omitted information of which Judge Diener should have been advised concerning 3 phones shown to be moving in and around the crime scene at a time when law enforcement would state the murders were being committed. This third Franks notice provides additional evidence that Sergeant Holman's sworn deposition testimony was false concerning the findings of the Purdue professor, as Turco's own words confirm in September 19, 2023 interview. This third Franks notice provides additional evidence of law enforcement's intentionality of concealing evidence, as Sergeant Holman's September 22nd, 2023 report attempted to conceal the actual words of Jeffrey Turco. Again, Sergeant Holman had sworn under oath that Turco did not find Odinism or cults as being involved in the murders, but Turco's own words show Holman's testimony to be false. It was in Holman's best interest, therefore, to omit or water down much of Turco's own words in his report, which is exactly what Holman did. The defense is asking, based upon this third Franks notice as well as the other Franks notices, to set this matter for a Franks hearing, to argue that all fruits of the search of Richard Allen's home be suppressed. Additionally, the defense requests that on this serious matters raised in Franks 1, Franks 2, and Franks the third, as well as the exhibits that back up those matters, the court issues findings of facts and conclusions of law as to how and why the court ruled in whatever manner it rules on the defense's request. Now, remember, the last one, it was just denied without a hearing. So they're specifically asking, like, hey, if you're going to deny this without a hearing, then I want to know why. What findings of fact and conclusions of law are you using to deny this without a hearing? So now, Travis, are you still here? I have a question, and I was going to message you and ask you this, because if she does, so this was my example when we were talking about the 70-day, and one of the exceptions to the 70-day is if the defense puts forth a motion that would postpone that 70-day trial. Now, my example was the Franks motion, and now here's another one right out the bat after I say that. If she decides to give them a Franks hearing, what does that do to the 70-day? I'm going to take a drink. Hopefully Travis is still here and listening to me talk. Hi, Diamond Eyes. Okay, the bat phone rang. So if she gives them the hearing, what does this do to the 70-day speedy trial? Koala the best. Ivy, are you leaving me? Bye, Ivy. She can extend the time for trial. But then, what if that's the case? And she extends the time. Anything that defense can extend the 70 days. I know, but so does it have a specific, like, how far? Like, how? Why not have just left it in October then? I think that's going to be the question. I don't really understand that. Like, why would you file for the speedy and then file for the Franks that's going to push out the speedy? That's where I'm confused. Okay, Franks can extend 79 days by the time it takes to conduct hearing and issue an opinion. They have it on there for what, 3 weeks? But jury selection, I think we did find out. I don't know if I told you guys that we did find out that jury selection actually starts on the 13th. People were asking that. The trial has to start in May. The Franks hearing can be the first on the agenda of all the motions she will have to hear or decide on. Let me find your comment, Radar. The defense can extend it. It doesn't make sense to me. Anybody that's still militant prosecution in the case, in my opinion, is worth talking. In my opinion, hold on, I gotta reread that. Anybody that's still militant prosecution in this case is, in my opinion, worth talking about in this case too. Extend to 70 days, fat thumbs. If the warrant drops, RA gets released. I don't know. This is just, that confuses me on, if they want to get to trial, I don't know why. They already, if they knew they were going to be doing another Franks, or even requesting it, because it seems to me like, are they purposely putting this in case they're in the fact they believe that she's going to deny it? Right, that's where I'm at. Yeah, thank you, Tornado Artist. Yeah, like, is this because they think if she denies it, they have to have it written out, and now they want to make sure, that's why it has it at the end, like, we want to know your conclusion of law so we can appeal it, so we can know how to appeal it. Now, yeah, I know that. I'm just confused on why. Like, if she was to grant it, or are they just assuming she's not going to? That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, KO, that's it. Yeah, is that what it is? So defense had to weigh having the trial date extended for Franks with having a clear record for new information being considered as part of Franks. Okay, so I think we're all kind of looking at the same. That's where I was kind of at, because then I was like, man, I wouldn't put it past her to actually give him a damn hearing then, because then it also gives Nick more time. But he'd have to prepare for the Franks hearing, so I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. I think it all just has to do with that. But I'm like, well, maybe, or it is, or like Richard was saying, like, it's because these new things with the geofencing and the, the conversations with the professor and all of that, they're adding that into this. And then that's the only thing I could come up with, is because now there is more, and so they have to make it part of that record because it's not on the first Franks or the second Franks technically. Make sense? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna stick with that. Like, I think it's all just because they want it on the record. Hi, if Gull reads in its entirety, she cannot deny that she know every point in the new amended Franks hearing. There's no way she even read the last one. I just cannot. I do not believe she did. I know people can disagree. I think and that's probably another big thing too, is that they need this. They need this so they know how to appeal it, right? Oh, that's what I just said. Okay, perfect. That makes sense to me. Okay. This one's just garbage. The only reason I even brought it up because I thought it was funny, because they actually issued an order for arrest. It was an accident and they took that down. But I just thought it was kind of funny. They're just denying cameras in the courtroom. We already knew that was going to happen. This is the ex parte communication received from Frank, from Art of Deduction, as he sent in another ex parte communication to the judge. Okay, let me see what you guys are saying. But they most assuredly looked at what information they would have obtained with a hearing. They have Holman on the stand. If granted Franks, all public, all the misrepresentations, it's a win-win for RA. Okay, I got you. Thank you. Due to the amendments, the initial Franks request was denied, and now there's changes indicating the need to reintroduce. And it's just adding more and more to it. Like I said, at least that one wasn't 136 pages. Yeah, they've got a nice full record now that isn't being made invisible. True. If they get the evidence thrown out, then there won't be a trial. There isn't enough evidence to even hold him on the charges. If they got that evidence thrown out, yeah. He just added a correction. Oh, that's, I think I have that too, somewhere in there. Okay, let me see what's next. This is from Nick. Hi, Brian. That's why the first Frank's motion was kind of wild ride, because they got all of that Odin and stuff on September 8th. A slim chance she gets she grants the Franks. They know what they need. They already got it down pat. It will be Nikki that's running in circles. Thanks, Brian. I miss you. Okay, so I think this was the next one on the docket. Hey, Jeanette. This was the next one that pops up, and this is, does he change this? Sleuthy, you probably already read this. Is there anything changed in here? He probably just takes out the, I don't want to reread all the 17 pages. Let me blow it up for you guys. So this is the request for medical records. When I saw Frank's 3. This is from Nick. I just took it as an addendum. Yeah, this is from Nick. This was filed today. This is the third request for medical records. I did not read this one. I'm just wondering if it's really that different. Because, like I said, I do not. We've already read it, and I figure he's. Remember, he submitted it, and then he withdrew it. I'm thinking that he just took out the stuff from the ex parte that he wasn't allowed to have. It's nothing different. It's boring. Okay. Third time's a charm. If she really wanted to help him, she would give him the medical records. Well, see, I struggle with this. I struggle with it. I'll say why in just a second, Mariah. Let me finish these couple, because I think this is literally the same, just removed. And then this is now the fourth request. So Sleuthy sent me both of these, and I was like, that's the same thing. And she's like, no. And then she types me in all big letters like medical and mental. I'm like, oh, fuck me. I just didn't read. Okay, so this is now the subpoena for the mental records. Okay, so she says this is the only important part. The state has filed a motion for leave in the past to obtain these records, and the defense objected to said motions. Now that the defense has listed the defendant's mental health and or medical records as possible exhibits in the trial, the state believes they are entitled to the same. It seems clear that the defense intends to make the defendant's mental health and medical health, I don't know why in my brain those two words are just the same today, apparently. Mental and medical health an issue in this matter. In order to address this, the state needs to review the defendant's mental and medical records in order to have an opportunity to consult its own expert. The state concedes the defense has not filed any kind of insanity defense or any other defense on behalf of Richard Allen, but the defense has brought Richard Allen's mental health and medical health into question in their filings and has listed those documents as possible exhibits in the trial. So yeah, it's essentially the exact same thing. He literally takes out the part that he wasn't supposed to have. Mental health is medical, yeah, but it's two different requests. One is medical and one is mental. I believe that the whole thing is going to come down to, this is about the confessions, in my opinion. It is going to be about that, if he was under any type of duress, if he was under any type of, some type of punishment or anything happening there, and just the giving up of life, they're going to look at his medical and his mental to see if that's why he could have, even if they call them like generic, what do they call generic admissions, I think is how it was worded, generic admissions, then I'm thinking that's why they're going to bring it in. Well, then Nick does have a right to look at just those parts. But remember, we were talking about this the other day with Travis on what is actually accessible. Okay, so this I think is legit the same thing, just now for the mental records. This is what I just read right here. Dun, dun, dun. I haven't got there yet, Travis. Let's go there. Hold on. Here, so this is a notice of discovery that was submitted by Rosie on behalf of Richard Allen, and notifies the court that on or about March 14th, Attorney Rosie provided the following discovery to the state of Indiana. This is the Westville Correctional Facility. This is the medical records part 1 and medical records part 2. So he does today. There's a lot going on because they're getting ready to go to trial here. So there's a lot of discovery being exchanged. And so now he did give the medical records to Nick McClelland today. And here's the deal. Nick isn't going for insanity on Rich Allen, or is he trying to? Serious question. No, they have not. The defense is not filing anything to do with insanity. What they're saying though is that his treatment while being imprisoned, is what's causing his loss of faculties. So it's not going to have anything to do with the crime per se. It's going to have to do with what's happened to Richard and how he's been treated. 1, because of law enforcement. 2, because of Nick McClelland and Judge Diener and Judge Gohl. And then 3, because of the guards and the treatment he's received while he's been at Westville and at Wabash. That's causing his mental capacities to fail. So they're just trying to show that's why all these things that are happening after his incarceration, being imprisoned when he's not been found guilty of anything, is a problem. Okay, let me go back. Okay, that's the 4th request. Okay, so here's the list. This is now back to the contempt. No, he can't. He can't go for that. No. This is now back to the contempt. So Rick Snay had posted today that he had reached out to Holman regarding the K. Smith information, and that he had also reached out to Hennessy in the hopes to get it clarified that he was not the one who mentioned that K. Smith had done anything, that he wanted that record to be very clear. During this, and when Rick was in here earlier in the chat, he does say that he's not being forced to testify, that he volunteered. I don't remember. I don't want to missay what he said. He either said they asked and he agreed, or he volunteered. So he says it in the chat though in this live earlier that he so now he is on the witness list for Monday. So that just adds that. This is the verified supplemental emergency motion for continuance. The defense counsel and for above described supplement states the prosecution provided additional discovery. I think we already looked at that one for some reason. Yeah, the 14 megabytes of screenshots. We did that one already. I must have had it up here twice. Okay, we just looked at that one, that they did give over the medical records to Nick today. This is the defendant's notice of submission of a supplemental witness list. Now, this goes back to the trial. That Richard Allen and Brad Rose, by Brad Rosie, respectfully notifies the court the defense has turned over supplemental witness list to the state outlining the witnesses. The defense may call it trial. The defense may supplement the list if new witnesses are obtained. So just same old, same old. They just have to keep going with as they decide to call more people to their witness list, or they have more exhibits, or they find more discoverable items, that they do hand it over. So Travis, I want to ask you too about this exculpatory evidence, this potential exculpatory evidence. When it comes to the recordings of like Brad Holder or anybody else during that first week, which they keep bringing up Patrick Westwell, but I think they both pretty much conceded that Patrick Westwell was not recorded the first week. So I'm just going to go with Brad Holder's interview and whomever else that might be. Now, if Nick McClelland wasn't the prosecutor, he wasn't an investigator, he had nothing to do with the investigation at the time, how can he be certain, without hearing that interview, that there isn't anything exculpatory in it? Like, how does he have the right to state that it's not exculpatory? And I get the discovery, like you have to turn over anything that's inculpatory. You have to turn over anything that's exculpatory. I get it. And it's defined by, like, say the state finds out that Richard Allen, had an alibi and he's seen on the CVS camera at 2:13 p.m. Like, they have to turn that over and consider it exculpatory. But how in the world, when it comes to third party, could Nick decide what is or isn't exculpatory? That's where I'm at. Susie Q says, can you imagine being told by your counsel of possible Viking white supremacy connections and then seeing patches, then face tattoos? Talk about mental health. King says, PW inadvertently told us how much Odinism means to him and that he would end friendships because it's that serious. He has no right to tell the opposing side what is exculpatory or not to their case. He can't tell them how to do their case. But I know, like, there's a legal definition of what exculpatory is. And that's what I'm saying. Like, how does he determine that there isn't something in there? And then by saying, oh, well, you have the reports, that the investigator had. If you have the reports, then you should know what's in there and what's not. You know what I mean? Yeah, he did. He's like, you like Jesus? You can kick rocks, which I still don't believe. I'm going to be very honest with you. I do not believe that. Can you ask about the 19 sealed records? Lynn, refresh my memory. What 19 sealed records are you referring to? Yeah, but the reports can't be trusted. I agree. That's why I'm like, how can he decide? Right. So, like, that's like if you legally defined it, then it is. But how would you say that this third party person is or is not exculpatory if you don't have the interview? That's where I'm at. That confuses me. And how does he have the right to say that? Now, we were one of the things we were talking about yesterday was like the sketch. Now, if that sketch is okay, hold on. Travis answered. Let me see. Not understanding third party exculpatory. It's really hard. Third party exculpatory, like a professor says, could be Nordic runes. If DA learns there is a witness out there that will say something beneficial to the defense, they have to disclose. I don't know what. Well, I'm waiting for Lynn to reply to you. Remember Judge Gall unsealed over 100 but left 19 sealed? Oh, yeah, back in like June. I would assume they had. Those are all just motions in the documents. They have access to it, because remember, that's like when they file, they can file it for the public not to see it, but the other attorneys still can. So they would still have all of that, in my opinion. So Travis, does Nick have the right to say that Brad Holder's interview is not exculpatory. I think that's kind of like the bottom, or anybody like that. Well, true. Yeah, it could have to do probably with like the autopsy reports, things like that. It could be. It could be anything like that. Yeah, motions in limine. I missed the part on third party above. Okay, hold on. I'm going back up. I did? If the DA learns that there is a witness out there that will say something. That one? I read that one. But my question is how would he know? Yeah, how can he make an informed decision without all the information? Because he was told by the investigator, oh, no, yeah, that was nothing. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't know how he can make the decision and say, yeah, that interview is not exculpatory. He's never heard the interview, and he only has the exact same notes that can't be trusted, as proven by other things. But I guess that's the legal side of it. I just don't know how he can say it's not exculpatory. Now, I was saying, like, I was giving the example of like the person who they said that there was somebody who drew a sketch of like Mike Patty. And when we were talking in there about like they have the video of somebody giving information to a sketch artist, and I was like, it's probably the Mike Patty sketch. Now, if that person saw Mike Patty at 5:40 or 5:30 or something like that, I could understand why that wouldn't be turned over, right? Well, I guess it depends on the theory of the third party. Then I guess if you wanted to go with that other people were meeting up, I don't know. It's too that part's complicated for me because, like I said, I understand the definition of exculpatory, but I just don't understand how he can determine what is something when he doesn't even have the knowledge of it. He doesn't know what was said. He's never heard it. Okay, so the last thing that ends up in is Art of Deduction's second letter to the court. We still have not found Anthony Greeno's on the record, and he says he did submit one. The DA is required to request from all LE all aspects of investigation, good and bad, all of it. ISC is the state interviews everything. He reviews if it could point toward innocence. He should be turning over. So what are your thoughts then when Nick is saying, hey, that interview doesn't even matter. It's not important because it's not exculpatory. Okay, let me see. Now the dogs are starting to wrestle. Is BH's interview incriminatory for BH or any of his fellow Odinists, being the possible point of any whoopsie, we permanently deleted it. Now we'll never know. Yeah, I don't know. The camera barely could show the car, not ID people in the car, and no idea of a tag number. What does this camera actually prove? There are hundreds of thousands of these cars. They say we're there. If you can't actually see the people, yeah. And they won't seal it without putting on the docket that they filed it, sealed, and here's the legal authority under which it's sealed. Ellie's knowledge is treated the same as the DA's knowledge. So if law enforcement, so then they'd have to go back, and that makes more sense then why they have to go back and file this other Franks hearing then to continue to show that law enforcement cannot be trusted. Therefore, them just stating that these interviews don't mean anything is problematic. Right? How did they not investigate those phones? Well, who's to say that they just could never figure out who the phones belong to? Maybe they or they did investigate, they just haven't turned those reports over. I mean, I think there's a few possibilities still kind of outstanding there, especially when we know that there's still not discovery that's been turned over to the defense. I mean, they're literally listing it like, hey, where's all of Derek German's interviews? Where's all Kelsey German's interviews? Now that shit's crazy, because you can't tell me that those people were only interviewed in the very first week. And it's saying like, if you didn't interview these people, then we want that in writing that you didn't interview these people. If you only interview these people within the first 7 days, you never spoke to them again. Well, Kelsey said she was interviewed by like the FBI like 7 times. So that has to be in there. I don't know. That is just crazy to me. Can't wait to hear what the reason was for not executing the signed search warrants for Holder and Westfall's phones. They were ruled out, Sleuthy. They were already done. They'd already decided Odinism wasn't the thing. So no need to. No need to. Hi, Benio. Why were they asked to take a lie detector test if they did not suspect them? Well, according to Patrick Westfall, he did not take a lie detector test until September? October? August, September, till 2023. Yeah, defense is doing all the investigating. At this point, they're going to have to solve it. It's like they're going to have to solve the case in order to show that Richard Allen didn't do it, which is not necessarily how it's supposed to be, right? I mean, and there's the whole thing like, oh, they're just out there creating reasonable doubt. And it's like, no, I think they are actually like investigating to try to figure out who the hell killed these girls and why they just want to blame Richard Allen. Yeah, I don't agree with them not handing over the interviews, but we'll see what's up. Or anything to do with the geofencing. They just handed over a map? Like, that's weird to me, too. You just handed over the map, but nothing to do with who did it or how it was done. They can't even name who did it. And I don't know. It may not be 7, and I may, my friends tell me that if I'm going to exaggerate numbers, I need to do it like 11 billion, but I'm almost positive she said something like 7 times. Hi, Southern Sweet Tea. Didn't someone say they took DNA to clear them? So they have DNA also. Yeah, Patrick Westfall also said they took his DNA. But we know they took a lot of people's DNA. They took a lot of people's DNA. Who did the lie detector test deceased in a house fire? So Stephanie Thompson was the person who conducted the lie detector test on people connected to the Flora fire. And she also did the lie detector test for Elvis Field's sister. But she's not the one who did the lie detector test in 2023, obviously. Yeah, you'd have to just believe it. Kelsey, yeah. She said 7, but she may have been yeah, I don't know. I don't think they took it again. Yeah, I don't think they took it again. I think it's probably the first time they took it. Well, they probably would have if they were interviewed, which they have to have those interviews. So like I said, there's certain things, and that's why there's the request for the additional discovery. Like, hey, we see that there's probably these things. Like, they should be there. Where are they? So Tobe said they had DNA and fingerprints. That's what Tobe said in the Down the Hill documentary. He said they have DNA and fingerprints. And then if you remember, we played the clip a while back of Michael Catt, who talked to Kim Riley, and Riley said the person that they were looking for did not have a history, did not have a criminal history. So either, here's the thing with that. If they only had a partial, then they can only exclude people. So they're not matching it to anybody that had a criminal history. So that goes against the whole only having a certain amount of markers, unless they're talking about the fingerprint, which that means that they actually have a full fingerprint or a decent enough fingerprint that they can compare it, because whatever they compared, they knew that the person they were comparing it from did not have a criminal history. Does that make sense? Otherwise, if these are only little bits and pieces, then they can only use it to just continue to exclude people. Like, nope, there's no way this partial matches this person. No way this partial matches this person. But they're saying that the person, whether it was the fingerprint, that's what Kim Riley said, that person did not have a criminal history. I don't know. I just know he didn't say DNA or fingerprint, but Tobe said both, fingerprint and DNA. I'd have to go back and actually be able to quote it. Sergeant Holman seems to believe if there are recordings or documents of people he doesn't consider important to his theory, they do not need to be provided. Yeah, we don't think they're important, so you don't need them. If Allen was a match, it would be in the PCA. I agree. And even if it's not in the PCA, we would have known about it by now. We would have known that they had a match to him. In one of these filings, from all of this stuff that they have now put out, so much information, there's no way that they're just going to be like, nope, yeah, that DNA is just going to sit there and nobody's going to talk about it. They mentioned the transcript of the confession call between R.A. and his wife. Really hope they still have the recording too. I wonder if they did not put that in their request of discovery, so maybe they have received the recording now, because I know before they had said that they only had the transcript. But now they may have it, because that's not in the one that was filed the other day. No, I don't know how they cleared Tobe. Was it the same way they cleared Holder or Westfall or Fields? Maybe this is why nobody's cleared. Nobody's been cleared. Saying that the DNA could have come from someone who doesn't have a sample in CODIS. She just said that. Yeah, I've heard this, but I don't know if that's true. I've heard that too, but I don't know who stated it. When did they actually state that? Tell me where they stated it so I can go. I'd go find it. The defense isn't going to tell you that, no, but that they do say if there's no DNA, there's no connection to him, to the crime scene. I mean, DNA would connect him straight to the crime scene. So maybe they wouldn't say, oh, yeah, ooh, Richard Allen's DNA's there. I believe in a God of justice and righteousness. Oh, yeah. Yeah, find it for me, Kay. That'd be great. I appreciate that. And they said no DNA, no fingerprints, no hair, no nothing. They couldn't have, because he says it in the Tobe says they have fingerprints and DNA. I'm so glad I'm back in time for this. So the unraveling. Were you here between 3:15 and 6 o'clock? Or were you here from 3:15 to 6 o'clock? Just wondering. It is very circumstantial, but I see what you're saying, like to the point of ridiculousness. Because, I mean, all those things that we think are the most important connections, and I think it does confuse some people, like circumstantial evidence, that is DNA. DNA is considered circumstantial. Fingerprints are considered circumstantial. You know, eyewitness testimony, which is totally unreliable, is actually considered direct. Or if you're caught on film, then that's considered direct. Unless you can, I guess, see it. I haven't even seen it. I have a feeling God is different than mine. I had no idea who did this because of the links to deceive Ellie. Wouldn't they entertain? It may have been Ellie. Hold on. Let me turn that off so it doesn't just ding. Prisons are built with stones of law, brothels with bricks of religion. Oh. I thought you were talking about R.A. His fingerprints or DNA were not at the scene. Oh yeah, they said it's not that he's not that he doesn't have any. There's no DNA. There's no fingerprints. There's nothing connecting him besides that damn bullet or unspent round. Damn it. Richard Allen looks a lot like CP. Are they related? Not that I'm aware of. He does look a lot like Jimmy Duvall, though. I'll give you that. Becky Patty said that when she was asked about the CC Moore stuff, Becky Patty said that she had talked to CC Moore herself, but that let me see if I can pull it up really quick. So I know I have that one pretty handy, I think. That law enforcement was doing their own thing with the DNA. Kind of reminded me, I remember reading it, it reminded me of John Bonet, where they like wouldn't give up the DNA. Right here. So she's at, this is to Becky Patty. So the person is asking, is it a secret that investigative genealogy has been utilized in the girl's case? I see so many comments regarding BG having supposedly only left behind unusable touch DNA and just as many questions as to why CC isn't involved. I would never go against your wishes and certainly wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize the case. Da, da, da. She said they have their own expert handling the DNA. Let me see. They have something in the search warrant they don't want the jury to see. I don't think it's something, not in the search warrant itself. What they're trying to do is to get rid of the evidence that's found. Oh, I see what you're saying. You think that something else was found during the search warrant that does connect him, and they're trying to get rid of the search warrant and plus the fruit of the poisonous tree stuff. The fruits of that search warrant. I see what you're saying, Lynn. Well, because he doesn't have an alibi. That's my whole thought. He does not have an alibi. I bet he was alone, and there was nothing. I don't think there's anybody to support him having an alibi. So he was either at the bridge still, or he was alone somewhere, and he's not caught on any type of camera. Because if they actually could prove an alibi, then we wouldn't be here. I've never heard them say they didn't. This is the only thing I've ever heard from Becky saying, like, no. Let me see if I can find the one where she says that she talked to CC Moore. I don't know if I have it. All right, here. Let me pull it. Let me make it bigger so you can see it. We have never been told how much or what kind of DNA was recovered. We have personally talked to CC. We have also talked to Ellie about her. We were told that at this time they have someone similar to her working on it. Now, if that's true, if they had, because I can tell you that the FBI has their own investigative genetic genealogy teams. If that were true, then we would know who it is. Investigative genetic genealogy would have pinpointed to who it was. Don't be so sure on that criminality. People have been convicted when they've had solid alibis. That's true too. It's true. Only reason I will somewhat agree and I'll somewhat disagree with you is if his phone is not present there at all the entire time, then it's irrelevant if his phone isn't there at the time of the murders. Does that make sense? Like that would be like Elvis Fields, who they say like his phone was left at home. So his phone wouldn't be there either, right? That doesn't mean that he couldn't be there. It just means his phone wasn't there. So I think that if his phone was there and it's pinging from the 12:30 to 12:30 to 1:30 time frame, and then it stops, I think that would be interesting. Because I think that would be more meaningful to me is that his phone was there and now it's gone. But if his phone is never there the entire day, then I got questions. Let me see. That post is meaningless. There's no genealogical DNA. There is nuclear DNA from cell nuclei and mitochondrial DNA, which will only match to a maternal side. Well, their genealogical DNA is like investigative genetic, like forensic genealogy. So like if they run it, they put it in and compare it to other people and build a family tree. Is that what you mean? You just say like that the wording is wrong. I understand that. Right. So if he's there and if he was there and he says he was there and he says he was on a stock ticker, then he should be showing up in the geofence at some point during that time frame. Yet they claim testing showed no match to RA since no benefit against her. So who did it match to is the question. Or did they lie to her and say they had somebody similar working on it and they didn't? Because this would go against the whole like they only had 6 markers kind of thing. And I have a whole, if you guys are more interested in learning about investigative genetic genealogy, I did an entire presentation and live when it came to the Idaho 4, when it came to genealogy. If you guys want to, it's obviously the same concept because the meaning is the same and the information is the same, just for a different case. So if you want, you can look back on some of my older videos and it's about the Idaho 4 case, but the information is still the same. So if you want to learn more about it and how it works and what the differences are, then I suggest watching that one. Even if it's not about this case, you'll still be able to learn a lot about investigative genetic genealogy. Mitochondrial DNA is used everywhere. There have been cases where Ellie requested genealogical DNA they opened their database to run against DNA testing. Yes. No match to RA near the crime scene. I don't know if you guys can hear the dogs like wrestling in the background. Okay, so we have the last document. I don't know if you guys care to go through it. If it's something that you think that even needs to be gone through. This is the second one of these. So up to you guys if you want to read through it and see what he put in here. So if you guys want to read through it, put a 1. If you don't want to, put a 2. We have been on for almost 2 hours and 40 minutes, so this would be the last thing that we end up going over. So if you want to read through it, put a 1. If you don't want to read through it, put a 2. And I'm going to get these guys to stop wrestling right next to me. Okay, you guys want to read through it. All right, let's do it then. Look at everybody's a 1. Like, do it, do it, do it. All right, so this one is the second one that is submitted by Frank. Who dis? Okay, let me make it bigger so you guys can see it. So I, Frank Westling, solemnly swear that I will tell the truth and nothing but the truth. The exhibits listed below are based on 3 months of investigation and will provide evidence regarding the previous claim of the defendant's counsel using content creators as a means of spreading false information and malicious intent towards the family. Although the content of the evidence provided is my own discovery, it may be allowed as evidentiary value. Now, states individuals actively participating in slander campaign with fellow defense attorney Bob Mata and Kara Winicki. Although not illegal, this behavior is heavily disturbing for professional defense attorneys who should set an example and not indulge in high school gossip. Now, just because I'm reading this, I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I do not agree. And he knows I do not agree. I do not agree with these statements. Even if I'm reading it, I just know that. Now, goodness. Hold on, I'm going to take a drink. Okay, so the fellow defense attorneys Bob Mata and Karen Winicki, although not illegal, this behavior is heavily disturbing for professional defense attorneys who should set an example and not indulge in high school gossip. But then again, losing more cases than winning does not exactly bring its charms. The unprofessional conduct of lawyers within the social media aspect of this case is revolting and disgusting. All lawyers involved, from at least the defendant's perspective, partake in slander and name calling, which is sad. Individuals like Bob Mata go on court TV and voice an opinion while their agenda is set on an outrageous claim of inconsiderate statements instead of factual information or a simple Google search. This factual information should be portrayed in a fair trial, and the exhibit below will prove the behavior of lawyers in Indiana or elsewhere communicating with each other and setting forth a toxic community with stories of non-relevance and opinions based on their own experience. Although that experience usually involves evidence against the client, it should balance a sense of direction to defend their client in a fair, professional manner under Indiana Code Title 35, Criminal Law and Procedure. All right. Oh, gosh. I am very much aware that this court filing is about the case of Richard Allen, and if the court allows it, I would like to reiterate that due process should be due process and not a process until it's due. Hiding behind the Constitution is by no means good lawyering. Although this case is being made more difficult due to people with fancy Latin wording, justice only exceeds from being brought. However, the court should allow intervention when certified members of the bar in their state are to be reprimanded if said lawyer is directly involved in a high-profile case. This is not only for a fair and impartial trial, but also for controlling third-party damage to family members or other relatives. I want to make it very clear here. Kara is not representing Richard Allen in the murder trial of Abby and Libby. Bob Mata is not representing Richard Allen in the murder trial of Abby and Libby. On January 29, 2024, I think that's Michael Osbrook's Twitter handle, filed a motion on summary denial. Court records can and will show that even with this document was not yet available to the public, it was already available to the public without being filed within the court docket. Mr. Osbrook contacted me through Twitter and tagged me in a Twitter post challenging me to a debate portraying the recent proceedings in the Richard Allen proceedings. I obliged, and a date was set for February 10th, 2024 to do a coinciding live stream together on my YouTube channel. I don't know where he was going to stream it, but okay. Mr. Osbrook canceled our first meeting as the suggestion on his Twitter feed would have indicated that, as mentioned above, the defense club or Twitter-fueled advocates had gotten to them. The implication and indication by these individuals would suggest that Mr. Osbrook would be used to serve as an appellate lawyer in the case of Richard Allen. This makes sense. So when he was very first commenting, if you remember, Osbrook did an interview with the Murder Sheet. And so he had no problem doing interviews. But as soon as he started making actual filings on behalf of the defendant, he no longer could do those types of interviews. He's turned down Bob Mata too, and Bob has asked him multiple times to come on, but he can't right now. And it's the same as while Kara was actually representing him, she couldn't go on there and talk about it, but she could as soon as she was done. Upon review of Mr. Osbrook's document timestamped January 29th, I noticed that early on when receiving the document, it was filed in Dropbox link instead of a regular PDF format when checking my case number. Richard Allen. No such filing was yet public, but I am aware, but I am sure others were able to view the document listed below. So here's the document. Okay, I watched a number of your appearances. A guy in Holland takes on an Indiana murder case in almost perfectly idiomatic English. What's not to be interested by and even admire? I think you're really mistaken about a lot, but I also think I know why. And I am not saying I'm going to try to change your mind about anything. I actually want to give you the opportunity to change mine about any number of things related to Delphi. And even if you don't, it would be a fun discussion, and your audience will get at least a slightly different take and maybe a couple of goal stories, all of which they can take or leave as they choose. And you also get the opportunity to beat up a defense lawyer in person. I will warn you, though, I have a nickname at the Indiana State Prison, and it's called the Beast. Mr. Osbrook also participated in unprofessional behavior on social media, specifically Twitter, almost teasing viewers with gifts. I can't really make out what that is, but that looks like it's maybe Anna from Frozen. I can't tell what those are. So these are screenshots from Twitter. Deduction based on ignorance or avoidance of facts awkward for your position will likely lead you astray. And no, American judges do not have the right to decide what's best for the client. I admire your doggedness, though. Let's debate. I can't. Some of these I just can't see. Okay, so that's just showing that it's him. Okay, and then this is Kara. Criminal defense representation, consultation, and training on direct appeals and post-conviction state habeas proceedings. This is Kara's. They also took time to organize and attend a gathering at the Indiana State House. They have no idea how much that meant to everyone working on the case, and to Rick, who I hope now knows how many people are out there caring for things to be done properly. And this part's circled. So this is about the Indiana groundswell, which I think leaves some people confused, because that literally, the groundswell was about our constitutional rights as Americans and making sure that our constitutional rights stay secured and we have the right to peacefully protest anywhere based on our own constitutional rights. Okay, so this is Kara Winicki again. One day I'm filing an original action to get the defense daddies back on the case. Another day I'm counting days on a calendar to determine jail time credit. Every day is a grind. I think she's funny. In Indiana, Hoosiers have a constitutional right to hunt and to fish. Hunting is often accomplished with firearms. Under statutory law here, children are permitted to hunt with firearms. And now under the High Court's decision, children may have constitutional right to carry under the Second Amendment. If we are considering history and tradition, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but okay. Okay. So that talks about the lawyer. Let's not call names. Whatever you guys do, yeah, don't call names. You do not have to agree. I get it. I know that, but please don't just make up a whole list of names. This is why I was hesitant to go over it. Don't do that. It is what it is. Let's just. I want to add a fuck yeah after that. Okay, so now this is going to be about the unraveling. Yeah, unraveling is a group of self-proclaimed advocates for the Constitution. Their voice within the case of Richard Allen has been concerning on many levels. The unraveling has been having a trending pattern of Nazism, racism, and other outrageous conspiratorial claims that get implemented directly or indirectly through communications with previous and current counsel. Whoa. this is the same thing, really. I don't want to like say anything personal, but I'm going to say that there are people involved in the group of the unraveling that are not in the white privilege group. I'm just going to say that. Nor does this group resemble anything further for the truth. Their motto is fuck around and find out. Okay. This group of individuals are supported by investigators that are in direct communication with private investors of the defense team. See example below. Okay, so this is Rick Snay, Matt Sullivan. I'm assuming, I think that's Chris Todd and Jason Jensen. I have to reiterate to the court that this group is responsible for the majority of wild accusations, family bashing, and are the participants in supporting terroristic threats and anti-government protests. I have never once heard any family bashing, but you know, I don't see everything, so hopefully he's got something in here that backs that up, because I've never seen anything that's racist. I've not seen anything that is family bashing. And supporting terroristic threats and anti-government protests. No, that's actually, it's government. I mean, supporting our Constitution isn't anti-government. It's making sure, that's what the Constitution's for, is to make sure the government doesn't abuse its power against us, the American citizens. This is now Joe from Crime Night, little Joe Lewis. You have 24 hours to remove my personal details from your channel video community page. If you don't, or you refuse, your life will become a living hell. If you don't, or if you become a living, I keep telling you degenerates that I have far more info on you than you have on me. It's your choice. The ball is in your court. You've never fought a fire. Never fought a fire like me. First and only request, upon doing so, I'll remove all. I don't know what this is necessarily about. I don't know if there was something that was put up that had anything, and I'm assuming this is to Frank. Hold on. I don't. The ball is in your court. You'll never fought it. Okay. I don't. I'm going to pass that because that's got personal identifiers. I don't know. I don't know if that's to Frank. I don't know if Frank put something up about him. So I have no opinion because I don't know what it really is. This is The Unraveling, the Delphi Murders, Ron Logan. This was a very good live. I watched this live. Watch Sunday, February 25th. The Unraveling crew reveals why Ron Logan cannot be ignored when it comes to the Delphi murders. You won't want to miss this. Okay. A town torn apart by murder. The devil you don't. Oh, this is the same live. It says IMDb. All right. Hopefully, some of this hopefully gets explained because I'm kind of confused on what this means. I don't know what this means. The town torn apart by murder. The Delphi murders, Ron Logan. Okay. The text messages you see are between. Okay, I'm gonna scroll there. So, by people in The Unraveling and Meow Zedong. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. And with full permission, I'm allowed to use these screenshots. This is Jason Jensen. I want to reach Kathy and offer my assistance. Can you help me get the word to her? Having a good PI can reduce costs for an attorney. Having a good alibi established for that day, Monday, February 13th, can also reduce the cost for an attorney. Well, yeah, because if you had the alibi, you would probably be much better off. Have you ever heard of Jason Jensen? He's a private investigator that does cold case stuff. I think he's done some court appearances for Delphi in the past few months. Jason Jensen. No, I haven't. He messaged me about getting in touch with Kathy Allen, and I told him I'd pass his contact info to anyone who might know her. One sec, let me send you a message. Okay. So the private investigator wants to get in touch with Kathy Allen to help Kathy Allen. Okay. And by the way, Allen's defense contacted Lee yesterday, which is Galen's lawyer. They did. How do you know? Those are the things I would like to know. I don't know what that is. Josh Dissinger. Ooh, that's interesting. Also went to the Flora First Christian Church, the weird shady one. Doesn't allow black parishioners. LOL. The defense team was looking at it. They define themselves as anti-racist. Who is this? Oh, this is okay. I see who it is. Never mind. This is Meow. They define themselves as anti-racist, but they are racial supremacists. They can define themselves as a tomato for all I care. They're all still racist. Oh, that's funny. Okay, is this the same? That's the same. Okay, here. Does Matt Standifer have any Odinism tattoos on him? This is also to Meow. They are saying that is who killed Libby. Matt Standifer? Odinism is a religion. Odinism is a religion formed by Heinrich Himmler, a famous Nazi during World War II. This person says, I need to print that 136 pages and read them and reread them. He dipped his finger in Libby's neck blood and writes on the tree. What the fuck? I heard that a while ago. Did they just release this? Okay, that's from the 136 pages. Okay, this is also to Meow. They hate interracial relationships. And I'm not reading chat, so I don't know what you guys are saying. Enough to kill. They've done it before. They almost exclusively kill interracial couples and snitches. Snitches, kids too. It keeps people quiet. It's very clearly gang-related, white supremacy, neo-Nazi type. Check his Facebook friends. Can I see a pic of Brett Holder? This person says, yes, they decorated sticks on their bodies. They decorated the sticks on their bodies. Flora and Delphi are definitely related. I don't see a Brad Holder. Just so you know, that's not even in doubt anymore, though, that they're connected. Okay. I cannot read that. This is also from Meow. The images were already being widely shared by the point I received them. I only received 2 grainy screenshots. I do not have all of them. I did send to True Crime Design because she is, I've seen this screenshot, because she's an actual artist and capable of making an accurate and tasteful rendering of the images in order to stop the dissemination of them. We discussed that a watercolor would be the most appropriate medium. Okay, and then to do with law enforcement has not advised me further on what to do with the images. Okay. This is Angela Lively. Frank. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. Some of this I don't know what it's. I don't know the purpose behind it. So I also can't read some of it to understand the context. So it just this is Rick Snay going over the groundswell when they were all going to go to the groundswell. Okay. This is still hiding evidence with special guest Hoosier cold cases. This is Delphi Richard Allen's new trial date, state hiding evidence from the defense. Okay, so Hoosier cold cases went on somebody's stream. This is photos from the groundswell. Mothman and Yellow go to Indiana. This is now Rick Snay. That looks like Jason Jensen, and I cannot tell you who that is. I don't. Okay, so now. This is to Bob Motto, Defense Diaries. Just be aware that those people who helped wanted it because he did a suicide attempt. It's a fucking simple logistics matter. That's why. That's a rumor I'm hearing too. But I emailed and called Scremin and the attorney for the DOC because they are refusing to give Kara information, and she most certainly represents Alan's interests. And he says, HIPAA, my man. So that's the shit I work on. I leave the rest to y'all. Okay. Now this is about Chris Todd. I don't have crime scene photos, but Ron Logan did it. I don't know who made that or why that matters. This is Mitch Westerman to Robert Fortson to everybody. I can't. Something bodies. Fortson rendered stay questioned by ISA. I know Alan is guilty and Ron Logan was with him. I know a dirty secret. This is Chris Todd on Court TV. You guys wanted me to read this. I just want you guys to, if you're blaming anybody for me reading this, it's you guys. Okay, this is still Chris Todd, LEO. Sources say Ellie couldn't figure a 77-year-old man could pull it off. These cops are the worst investigators. Someone told me this town is something for years of sins. Including your closing, the refined argument might look something like this. Including your closing, the refined argument might look something like this. The individuals listed below all share a critical commonality. Prior to the arrest of Richard Allen, they firmly believed Ron Logan was responsible for the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. This belief, coupled with their pre-existing engagement in an anti-government content, casts a significant shadow over the relevance and integrity of their exhibits and interactions with the defense counsel. Their concerted efforts not only seek to introduce reasonable doubt, but also reflect a broader agenda, influenced by their political ideologies. A thorough investigation into these individuals would undoubtedly reveal a pattern of conspiratorial behavior, underscoring the necessity of scrutinizing their motivations and the potential impact on this case. It lists all kinds of people, Delphi After Dark, Unraveling, Jason Jensen, Chris Todd, the defense investigator, Matt Sullivan, Julie Melvin, and Hoosier Cold Cases. The defense's attempt to leverage these contexts without acknowledging the underlying biases and preconceived notions falls short of genuine effort to illuminate the truth. Instead, it appears as a strategy to exploit any opportunity to create doubt, irrespective of the factual basis or lack thereof. The problem I'm having here is he has no idea what was turned over to the defense. He has no idea what the testimony even is. It appears as strategy to exploit any opportunity to create doubt, irrespective of the factual basis or lack thereof, but we don't know the factual basis. I haven't seen them or the lack thereof them. A side investigation into these individuals would likely confirm their engagement in activities and rhetoric aimed at undermining the government and its institutions, predicated on their political beliefs. This backdrop is essential for the court to consider as it provides context to the defense counsel's interactions with these individuals. It is imperative to discern the motivations behind their actions and how those motivations could color their contributions to this case. A clear understanding of their shared belief in Ron Logan's guilt and their anti-government stance is crucial for evaluating the credibility and relevance of the evidence they provide. With kind regards, Frank Wesley. I mean, it's signed off pretty nice. Raider, I know that had to be hard to read. Thank you, hon. Go get Shibby with some Dr. Pepper. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how else to say it. I don't understand how this ties together. I have personally never seen anything racist or anti-government. I believe that protecting our Constitution is what we as Americans have to do in order for the government to not overtake us. It is part of why the Constitution was created. Maybe that's and I hate to direct it to somebody who's not here, but that's what our Constitution is for. That's the point of it. So maybe that's just because I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. Some of this other stuff just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what any of this has to do with him. So Jason Jensen wants to help Kathy Allen. Okay. Like, he's allowed to do that. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's really just to say, hey, goal, pay attention to the people on the witness list of the defense and the people who are working with the defense attorneys, such as Bob, who is a defense attorney. He is actually allowed to do that. Pick one. I don't know if I can pick one. I think this is my personal opinion, is this is just because he doesn't like these people. I don't see anything beyond that. Kara Winicki has every right to post whatever the hell she wants to on Twitter. Bob Motta has every right to post whatever the hell he wants to. Frank from Art of Deduction has every right to post whatever the hell he wants to until it becomes illegal. And nothing that's been posted on any of these things is illegal or racist. Or, I mean, the biggest racism thing is Meow calling other people racist for what they've done. So, I don't know. I can't. Maybe he'll go over it on his channel and break it down so that it's understandable. Because like I said, I'm trying to understand something somebody else wrote that doesn't make sense to me. Plus, I'm trying to understand context of screenshots that I can't even see. But to me, Bob is a defense attorney. He's allowed to help and talk to other defense attorneys whenever the hell he wants to. People don't have to like it. That's fine. But that doesn't make him bad. I'm going to email Go a picture of my butt and demand to be on the record. Oh, God. Yeah, racist calling out a racist is awesome. I think we need to stop targeting other creators. It's not in good taste. I agree, and I hate this because this is like, it makes these creators part of these court records, and I don't even know what, she should never have even put them on there, but that's my opinion. They should not have any credibility. The thing is that we cannot just go around contacting Judge Goal. It doesn't matter what we think about anybody else. If I don't like the person that Nick McClelland is going to use as an expert witness or as any witness in Richard Allen's trial, I cannot write to Judge Goal and be like, Judge Goal, I do not like the witness on the witness list of Nick McClelland, and I think that you should take a look at it. It just doesn't. That's not how it works. So no, please don't anybody write. Please don't anybody write. Please stop writing to the judge. Please stop writing to the judge. This is not helping get justice for Abby and Libby. Ugh, this is so frustrating. At least he sent it to the right clerk. We got it. I mean, there's props right there. See, look at the glass half full. Glass half full. There's just such an animosity from people on social media that they just don't like each other. And so it's like now taken on a life of its own and becoming part of the court record. And here's the thing. I tried to explain this the other day, and this is the last thing I'm going to say on it until the next time there's another weird filing. But the defense team filed stating that they were going to potentially be using these exhibits and these witnesses once they were able to go through them. They didn't say they were. They said they didn't. They had not had a chance to go through it. And if they did, that would mean that something that they had was important to the defense of the defense attorneys. Now, if these YouTubers, any of them, in all honesty, believe they have something that would help the prosecution, then contact them. None of this should be going to the judge. And then Nick McClelland would be the one that makes the decision whether he believes these people would make good witnesses or if their exhibits would make good evidence. Like, we're creating such a bias with the judge that we're claiming that she's biased, but yet now we have a handful of people who are writing to her. It's honestly, it's inappropriate. Like, I don't know. And then and then there's just random claims of. Here's the thing, we didn't see what any of those witnesses sent to the defense. So I don't know why we're fighting against what they sent so bad when we don't even know if it's good evidence or it's going to be used. So I find it very interesting that anybody wants to knock this evidence that we don't even know what it is. But yet, when we say we think Richard Allen might not be the right guy, the answer is typically you don't understand what the prosecution has because you don't know all the evidence. Why is that not okay on both sides then? How can that be a good excuse for why Richard Allen is being held in a prison for almost 2 years, but it can't be good enough for the defense during a contempt hearing? I just think that we really got to start staying in our own lanes here. And I think we are way outside of our parameters as YouTube, social media, true crime people. That's it. That's my final thoughts on that. And I don't honestly know what else to say. Did I miss something here? Hold on. Where did it go? High grin for me. Imagine trying to shit on Bob. He's just a solid factual guy that only goes with reads and documents and never speculates. Well, here's the thing is, I think because for me, like I've now watched Bob, talk about multiple cases. And I know that people are like, oh, he's totally biased because he's a defense attorney. But like on the other cases, I'm telling you, he's like, oh man, this guy's guilty. Ooh, that prosecutor did such a good job here. And he's all over the place. He has different opinions about all kinds of stuff. He has come forward with the Richard Allen case and has very much stated as a defense attorney, he is very biased because of the lack of information and evidence supplied in what he considers to be a weak PCA. Now, he is an attorney, but he's also just a human being, and he has the right to have whatever the fuck opinion he wants to have. I mean, he does. So I don't know why that matters. It matters because of, here's the thing is what I think it is because of influence. He has an influence over people to get people to not just close the door and just look at both sides. Look at it from an open perspective. That's it. So I've been on the streets since the inception of true crime YouTube. Yes, hybrid forever. And never seen social media enter the case. It's mind-blowing. To just end up like writing to the judge, like a lot of people don't get it that the defense isn't trying to delay the contempt hearing out of fear. They want to postpone it until after the trial. It's very reasonable. Well, I think that the contempt hearing is just bullshit anyway, and I don't know why it would even be on the agenda before the trial. And I think it's stupid on Nick's part because, like I've said over and over, he's the one who has to handle both. He's the one who has to handle the contempt hearing and the trial. For the defense team, they have attorneys handling it. Greeno's letter is not part of the court record, so I will not be reading it. The only reason I'm even reading this one is because it ended up there. I would not even be reading it if it wasn't. And since his is not, I'm not reading it. It's there's now literally a group of people who just want to go after the other group of people while saying that that group of people has gone after them. I don't know. So, like I said, I don't understand it. Hopefully, maybe there'll be a breakdown of with clearer screenshots of why this is important or why it's deemed important to certain people. To me, I don't understand it. I don't think it's important. I don't think it's relevant, and I don't think it should have been sent to the judge. And now those are actually my final thoughts, and I am going to wrap it up. And I thank you guys for being here and spending another over 3 hours talking about this fucking case and the craziness that goes along with it. I cannot wait for it to get to trial. I cannot wait for it to get to trial. That's all I can say. I just want like all the evidence, put it out there. Let's see what you got. If it's him, it's him. If it's not, it's not. We'll go from there. But then all this other shit hopefully just stops. He did write a letter. He posted the letter that he wrote, but it's not on the record. So as for me as a creator, it's not on the record. It's not relevant. I mean, and that's why I said the only reason I even had this one up is because it did make it on there. I wouldn't have read any of these from any of the creators. I wouldn't have read Fig's. I wouldn't have read Frank's first one. I wouldn't have read any of them if they hadn't ended up on the record. Because I don't, what other YouTubers think of the case, like I've told you guys 1,000 times, is irrelevant to me. I don't care. The reason I keep looking at it and going through everything and reading everything is so I can figure it out and figure out how I feel about the case. And I do listen to other people because I'm very open and curious to their opinions, but I would not sit here and read. I would not sit here and read what they had to say. I wouldn't, except for it's on this. It's now supplied to the fucking court. So here we are. I appreciate you guys. Go enjoy the rest of your Thursday. I might be back tomorrow. We've got football and gymnastics, but I think I might be back tomorrow. I'm going to try to be. I have a ton of information that I have gathered to start digging into, to start the whole Karen Reed case, and giving everybody the backstory on it. I want to do another Madeline Soto live. I've done a bunch of research on that. I mean, I have other stuff I want to talk about, but then it's like this encompasses like my being because I'm so just. So I have other stuff to talk about, so I've got to be able to do that. Maybe tomorrow Delphi will quiet down and I can get to something else. But until then, I will see you guys next time. Like I tell you all the time, I know you have 1,000 other places that you could be, and yet you choose to spend your time here with me. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. No, I'm not a gymnast. My daughter is. So I cannot figure out how to play this as an outro without it echoing. At both times I've done it, and you guys asked, and I can't figure out how to do it without it echoing. So I'm going to try it, and we'll see what happens.
Do you dare to follow me down? Head into the unknown. Down the rabbit hole. Where it stops, no one